I'm Scott Al Miller here with pneumonia again, but feeling a bit better. On Wednesday night, it is time for the Nicaragua Live. I hope everyone was just on with Luke Graham, the Journeys of a Malcontent, who just did his first ever live stream here on YouTube. And congratulations to him for an awesome show. Was over there watching that. And now we are... just got some good news. That's awesome. And now we are doing a follow-up. I actually was like, oh no, I was going to do a live tonight to try to speed things up because I didn't have any free time today. And then Luke was on live and I'm like, no, I have to go watch and support him. No, I'm like happy to go watch and support him, of course. But then I'm like, my schedule is all messed up and I don't know what to do. So we're doing a very late live tonight. And, we're gonna at least start with doing some old comments on the show because that's the easiest thing to do when we don't have people. It's gonna be late, so I don't know how many people are gonna be on. I have had just a busy day, busy day. Oh my gosh, and tomorrow is going to be nuts. So I am trying to find ways to speed things up tonight and to get the show out. See what we got going on. Just going to sort this by most recent. So I've had pneumonia for about a week. This says I've had no comments for the last 2 days. I find that strangely unlikely. But I will reply and let them know I'm replying. So Fodroyer, 2 NPC. Is Nicaragua really a repressive country, like is said in Western propaganda? Obviously not. That's the ability to do this show alone. You would, from Western propaganda, you would be told that this show couldn't exist, right? Like, and the things I show out on the street certainly do not show what you hear on the news in North America. So, no, certainly not. Living here, I can tell you, leaving a repressive country like the U.S. and coming here is a breath of fresh air, right? It is so much more free. It is so much more democratic. It is so much more non-repressive, right? Like living in Nicaragua, nowhere's perfect, but living in Nicaragua compared to North America, my gosh, right? There's a reason that the U.S. is fearful of it. They don't want Americans seeing what it's like down here. He says this may be the excuse for USA to bring democracy. Look at Marco Rubio's statements. Like in Venezuela, centralizing power. Really hate when some countries affirm their independence to global corrupted organizations like the WHO. I think he means the WHO. He says like who. Oh, yeah. He says WHO and UN. He means the WHO and the United Nations, and really want to have full control of the world. That really want to have control of the world. Yeah, it's a very freeing experience being down here, and also a scary one, knowing that that places like the U.S. Are very upset and out to get us, and have a lot of money and power and willingness to do terrible things to get what they want. Luke is on. Hola, y'all. Made it over 3 hours before this feed dropped. I was on over there watching, So, Luke, I held out on going live for tonight because I was watching your show. So I'm like, uh-oh, it's getting late. I hope I'm able to do a show. But I'm sad that your feed dropped. Tony says, good show, Luke. Tony was over there with me as well. Pretty much we're going to get the stragglers from Luke's show on the late show over here tonight. Just going for a little bit. So Rebel Gran Aunt One, who's often on the live stream, she'll probably be on tomorrow. Tonight's a little bit much. Says, hi, Scott. I hope that you have been given puffers and antibiotics. So the puffers we get are, I actually haven't started using this yet, is this, the Medimax. These are very popular here. Like, this is funny. Nebulizers, everybody has a nebulizer. This is, Gigi ran this over for me. I've got hers. But Marcella was just here and brought hers over with her because she has pneumonia as well. Wow, I'm just completely out of focus. What is going on? Bring me back. There we go. And it's the camera's pointing off just a little bit, and it sees that face, and it can't stand that there's a face in the background sometimes. Yeah, that face looks more like a face than my face. That's how big my beard is. But so like Marcella brought her own nebulizer over for her pneumonia. It's so common that you just expect everyone to have one. Nearly everyone I know, like only one per household, or maybe if you have one, your grandparents don't, or something like that. But they're really basically everyone has access to a home nebulizer. Americans are like, you can have those at home. Like, it's so funny. Like, the accessibility of medical care here is so much. We talk about how fast the hospitals are. We talk about that doctors will come to your home. We talk about how easy it is to use a pharmacy and so forth. And those things are real, and that's all true. But some of the stuff we leave out because we don't think about it is like owning a Medimax at home. Having a nebulizer is normal as opposed to illegal in the United States. So when Americans have to go to the hospital for the most basic things, Nicaraguans can just take care of it at home. Things that would be really simple. Speaking of, someone did have the question about CPAPs recently, and I don't know if I'm going to come to where that question was, but I will tag them if I can. It may have been someone on Luke's show, actually. I'm not sure. But someone asked, how do you get CPAPs here? Well, important to note, my research says CPAPs are not available in Nicaragua, not because they're illegal, not like the United States where they're a controlled substance and they're kept from you, simply because there's a very low demand. They're kind of expensive and no one sells them. But can you get one? If you can find someone who will sell them to you, places like the United States control them in the U.S. They're very difficult to get. I don't have one because the United States, the way that it worked, I'm not going to go into details. The government only allowed you to get it from one company. That company had a monopoly. That company wanted to extort us and would not let us have a CPAP. And that's all it came down to. One private company controlled the CPAPs for Texas, and that was that. My doctor wanted me to have one. My insurance company even wanted me to have one. But a private company that was not my doctor, not the government, and not an insurance company, which is bad enough, had 100% veto power, and it was illegal for me to have a CPAP. And so I learned to live without one, but I do love them. I had one for about 15, 16 years until I was in Italy, and mine died. And just finding one in Europe is very hard. Same thing. Like in Europe, they're just basically really hard to find. Now, this is like 7 years ago, so maybe it's better now. But we just couldn't find one. And then Texas flat out refused to let us have one. So we were banned in the U.S. from getting a CPAP. Well, here they're just not available. So I've been going for a long time without one, but I would like to have one for a lot of reasons. And honestly, the biggest thing, yes, the being able to sleep in more positions, being able to fall asleep faster. Although let me tell you, I crawl into bed with my dogs and I have a Pavlovian response, and I'm gone. If I need to, I can put on rain sounds and that'll speed me up a little bit more. But basically, like, I don't doom scroll. I don't do anything like that. I get into bed. The dogs get into position. Maybe I make it to putting on rain sounds if I'm feeling restless, and I'm out all the time, right? I'm always busy. I'm always going. So having the opportunity to fall asleep, my body is always ready to fall asleep. Luke, in country, like that we can buy? That's crazy. What that price feels high. Hold on, I'm going to look at that price. We looked quite extensively, but I haven't looked for a few years now because we gave up. Yeah, that price is... What? Are you sure that's the price? That's way out of control. Even in the U.S., they don't charge that much. They should be like $400 to $800 is like the real range. In the U.S., they'll 50 to 100% mark that up, but in so I just found out that we can get them overnighted in Argentina and then ship them up from there, or you can go pick one up, of course. A flight to Argentina from San Jose is only about $150 if you really shop around. That's one way, so $300 round trip. But heading down to Buenos Aires for a weekend to pick up a CPAP is a pretty sweet deal. Now, I've got people in Buenos Aires, so I can have it shipped to their house, have it, like, I'll know that they have it. I don't have to worry about any logistics. I can do that. But for anyone who's looking, like, they're like $400 to $500. in Argentina, you can get them next day. You go on their equivalent of Amazon, and they have a huge selection of all this stuff, and you can just send it on. So that's really interesting. All right, Luke found Respa Pharma, but there's no price. We had Marcella look extensively years ago, and she came up with there was none that she could get. Maybe they listed them, and I don't know if it was like none were available. Maybe they're available now. I will look into it because I would like to have. What I was going to say is the breathing and the positions and all that I do appreciate, and it is good for me. But the biggest thing is that my sinuses dry out pretty easily, and a good CPAP has a water reservoir, and it blows the air across the water, so it's like a really light dehumidifier. And because it's not an ultrasonic humidifier. And because it's not an ultrasonic, it doesn't take anything in the water and throw it into the air. So you can use dirty water. I mean, I wouldn't use like pond water or anything, but you can use well water. You can use municipal water. It doesn't matter at all. It doesn't have to be, the expensive water. It doesn't have to be distilled water. Nothing like that. It's just water, and air is blowing across the top of it. So all the stuff that's in the water, that's not going up into the air. Right. So you're dealing with evaporative, just pure evaporative. But because you have a decent sized thing of water, and the one that I always had a heater under it. So the water would probably get up to 100, 105 degrees. Not so hot. You're not going to burn yourself or anything, but you get a nice warm, moist air for your sinuses. And you just wake up feeling so much more refreshed from that. Of course, the better night's sleep. Sure. But this, like, your head feels better because all of this that most of us dry out during the night, you don't wake up with that, like, your mouth's all dry and you really need a drink of water. You don't have that because you're not evaporating all night. It's actually putting moisture into you rather than taking it out, and it really makes a difference. And so your sinuses feel the best they've ever felt rather than the worst. And it makes your whole day better. So I would like one for that purpose. MedCline makes a good GERD pillow wedge with cutout for the arm, and Filler Pillow also sells a J-shaped body pillow for side sleepers. I sleep a lot of different ways. Those things, I don't know how much they would help me because I really manage all those positions really well. And unless they accommodate the dog situation, that's really what gets me. So Rebel Grant says, a few years ago I got bronchitis and it turned into pneumonia. I refused to take pharmaceuticals, but my doctor said that if I didn't take them, she would put me into the hospital. I took the pharmaceuticals. I hope that you recover soon. My doctor here actually agreed with me. It was best to skip them. And everyone I know who's taken the antibiotics is much sicker. And I'm mostly doing okay. Great? No, but much better. Right, it's really noticeable, the difference between the people who took them and the people who didn't. All right, 6 days ago, Steven Strike 3040 said, "Hello, is it possible to invest $30,000 in agriculture or forestry in Nicaragua by 2026, obtain permanent residency, and then become a Nicaraguan citizen after 5 years? Or is Nicaragua also strict about granting citizenship?" So there's a number of pieces of question there. First, can you invest $30,000 in agriculture or forestry? Generally, those are allowed categories. So Intor has to approve that whatever investment you're going to do, but those would normally be allowed under normal circumstances. So just make sure whatever investment you want to do, it's done before, that your approval is done before you do it, not after. And then that will put you on a path towards permanent residency. Generally, that's going to take you several years before you obtain permanent residency. So figure 2 years. Most people, I think, take quite a bit more. For us, it was about 4. I know people are like 8. But certainly you can try to accelerate it. Maybe you can do it in less. But it's not going to be, I don't think it's possible to do it within 6 months. It takes time to set up the business. It takes time to do the investment. It takes time to get the employees. You have to have a certain length of time of track record with the employees. You have to have inspections from different agencies. You have to have a track record with DHE. You have to have a track record with INS and so forth. Nothing bad. Just it takes time to do all those pieces, and they don't generally happen within 6 months. So figure you're going to go at probably minimum of 3 years. Just you got to leave in some buffer. Figure it's going to take you 3 years to get approved, and then the law says you need to go, I believe, 4 or 5 additional years before you can apply for citizenship. So that you're looking at 7 years before you can apply in theory. But things you need to be aware of. One, you will have to give up whatever, if you were to be granted citizenship, you would have to give up whatever other citizenship you already had, right? So this is on a video where I said critical changes to Nicaraguan citizenship full breakdown made this clear. So he watched that video. He knows this, but for anyone who's watching, you will have to give up your other citizenships, all of them, right? If you have 1 or 20, all of them have to go away to get your Nicaraguan one. Presumably, that's what he wants to do, so not a problem. But it's important to note that the percentage of people who will get citizenship after being permanent residents approaches decimals, right? We're not talking about, to the best of my knowledge, a 1% number. We're talking about a 0.1 or 0.01% number. First of all, the number of people who get permanent residency here is outrageously small. The number of people who get temporary residency, the annual residency that you have to prove every year, that's already a small number, much smaller than you would expect, right? So let's start with the big number. The number of people who come to the country and stay in some capacity, the expats, is a very small number, far smaller than people expect. Like, people think 50,000? No, like 5,000, right? We're talking much smaller numbers. Then, right, and when we're talking Costa Rica, we're talking hundreds of thousands, right? And so people think, wow, it's less. 50,000? No, not even close, right? Then, when we're talking about the people who go for residency of any type, we believe it is less than half the number of expats, right? So take whatever tiny number of expats there are, cut it in half, and take off a little bit more. Those are the people who get residency. Of the people who get residency, something like maybe 5 to 10% of them at most go for permanent residency, right? Most are getting the rentista or the pensionado. Now, this may change because of some more recent rules, but going for the investor permanent residency is not in any way, shape, or form the norm. It is very much the exception. So you're talking about a very, very small number at this point. Now, of those people, it is something like 1% or 0.1% or less that go after and obtain citizenship. Of those who go after it, only a small percentage get it. I built those in together. But very, very few of those will ever try to get citizenship. That is not normal. And of those who try to get citizenship, only a small percentage of those will actually get it. Getting citizenship here is very hard. It is not something you would ever list as an expectation, right? So if that is a goal for you, you need to rethink that simply because it's not likely within the cards for you. Not that it's a bad thing to want, it's just bad for you to depend on it because there's no scenario where you can guarantee it's going to happen. If it works out for you, you got lucky, right? You got in at the right time, got to the right people, and so forth. It requires either what we would, as Americans, call an act of Congress, right? It requires here a vote by the National Assembly, so the parliamentary body that oversees lawmaking for the country has to vote as a whole on you and approve you, or the president personally has to do so. Those are big asks, one way or another, right? One or the other, both are huge, right? So those are not things that happen lightly. Even if you've been here for 5 years as a temporary resident, there is in no way an expectation that, imagine going to the United States and saying, okay, I put in all this stuff, I've met my requirements, what's my final step? And the final step is you have to convince the president to stop what they're doing, take a break, even for just a few minutes, consider your case and personally vouch for you and sign a waiver making you a citizen. Could it happen? Absolutely. Is it likely to? Absolutely not. Right? So understanding what that final leap is, and that's the one that people always gloss over. Anyone who's trying to sell you on citizenship is going to ignore this or not bring it up, that everything, which is hard already, leading up to that final piece is meaningless. At the end of the day, you have to somehow get in front of either the National Assembly or the president's office and get them to be in a good mood, take up your case, have time, personally invest themselves in you, and make it happen. So anyone you meet who gets this, you should be like, wow, right? This is not a light thing at all. Getting long-term residency here, trivial, very, very easy, very, very predictable. But that step to citizenship, and the number of people who want it is very small, right? I mean, the number of people, if you were just to hand it out for free, no effort, no nothing, we're just giving them out, a lot of people will be like, well, sure. But given what it means, given the things you have to give up, given the limitations it comes with, right? It's not a strong passport. Unfortunately, it's getting stronger. Americans getting way weaker, right? They're getting closer to each other, but it's still a tough passport. There's still a lot of stigma about being Nicaraguan. There's still a lot of external scary things going on. So the number of people who are seeking that is not high, and it's never going to be high. So you really want to think about, is it something you actually want? Why do you want it? Really sit down and define that, right? Figure out what is what is your actual goal, and then come to terms with, are you okay with having a goal that is almost impossible to predictably meet? Certainly, some people do it, but they're the exception, very much the exception, and so that's just very important to have that context. Or you'll likely be very disappointed very far down the path. Christy Gee, I'm pulling an all-nighter, sending my niece with my instruments to Leon tomorrow. Oh, exciting. I'm excited to be a local soon. Congratulations. Luke reminds everyone, if you're not filing for the investor residency, don't file for pensionado or rentista. Their benefits are trivial, if anything. Most of the reasons that people file for them, the number one reason, completely across the board, the number one driving thing for residency is confusion. Right? Same reason. I come from the IT field. So many things that people do. Why does everyone install antivirus on their Windows machine? Because they're clueless. They're confused. Why do so many people use Active Directory? Because they're confused. Why do so many people have the Windows that came on their laptop from the store? Because they're confused, right? Those are the reasons that most decisions are made. That's just reality, right? Now in IT, we see it really strongly, but the same things happen everywhere, right? If you ask most people why they did something, they aren't sure why they did. And that's kind of a way of saying they were just confused. Maybe they didn't realize they had a choice. Maybe they didn't realize they were making the decision. Maybe they didn't realize how easy it would be to do something else. Maybe they didn't realize that the thing they were doing wasn't very optimal. And maybe in some cases they made a good decision, but not very often, right? And so this just follows that general human trend of being bad at making decisions, often going for the decision that feels like it isn't a decision, right? People love to go for the default, the de facto, and then say, I didn't make a decision, it just happened. That's not true. You made the decision to accept the de facto. Maybe it was a minor decision. Maybe you didn't put much effort into it. That's the problem. Jen says, I just got back from the store. Expossess says, maybe your doctor can prescribe some codeine for your cough. I can't take codeine. That would be very bad. Maybe it wouldn't be that bad, but I took it once in 90. No, I bet it was 2000, 2001, somewhere around there. And definitely not doing that again. That is my experience with codeine after a surgery is pretty much, that was the moment I stopped all painkillers always. All right. Part of the advantage of the cough, though, is it keeps my lungs from filling up. All right. I am scrolling through. So 8 months ago, Eric Page said, Scott, can you give me any information about Bluefields, Nicaragua? Well, no, I haven't been out there, so that's tough. And I wish I had a lot of firsthand information because it's very, very popular that people want to know about that. Luke and I are hoping to go out in March to the Caribbean coast and have some information. What I can tell you is everyone who goes there loves it, and no one who goes there decides to stay. right? That's very consistent, right? We always hear, oh, the people are so nice, the prices are low, all that stuff is really nice. Yeah, it's a nice area, right? It's on the Caribbean. It's a medium-sized or a really big village, I guess, and there is a lot of stuff going for it. But when you I hear a lot of noises outside. When you actually get out there and realize that by car you're 12 hours away from anywhere in Nicaragua, when you realize that you need a flight reasonably to go anywhere, when you realize how small that community is, right? We complain here in Leon that it's too small of a town at 300,000. And even in Managua, people complain at 1.5 million that really they feel like they need to go other places for things. And quite often we do go to San Jose or Guate or Panama to get some bigger city life and more food variety and things like that. So when you look at those factors and say, wow, these places are pretty small, and you say, well, one's 1.5 million, one's 300,000, and they can drive to each other really quickly. And then say Bluefields, which no one knows the exact number, but somewhere between 30 and 45,000 people alone. It doesn't have support communities, right? Leon has Nagorote and La Paz Centro, and Chinandega is just 45 minutes away, and it's got the beach, and which is like a community on the beach. All these things add up to you're not alone. You've got places to go for things, right? And there's highways full of people. When you get to Bluefields, you realize that there's a dirt road running into town. No, it's really paved, but it's a very lightly used road running into town from the jungle, and that the entire town is up against the beach. There isn't a town and a beach, two separate communities. There's just the one community. There isn't a satellite city. There isn't another city you can reach. There isn't anything like that. You're alone. And you're basically living on an island, which is cool. Some people really like that. And an island of 40,000 people, so you're not like completely screwed. But Bluefields feels more like an island, isolated and by itself, than Ometepe, which is actually an island, but it has 55,000 people and much faster connections to the mainland. It has a ferry that goes back, can take as little as like an hour, depending. Normally it's more like an hour and a half, 2 hours. But there's a ferry going from two of its ports to the mainland all throughout the day, like every hour, every half hour, something like that. So you have this constant traffic, and you can get in and get out, and 55,000 people, and it's quite a lot more affluent than Bluefields. So that's a big leap going down to that tiny remote community that's very poor and so far away. So that's generally a reality that once people go out and realize just how bad it is in that way, right? Those aren't bad things. They aren't negatives about the community. They're just things that most people looking for a community go, oh, that's not what I'm looking for, right? People want to have a choice of grocery stores. They want to be able to go out to a restaurant. They want some amount of stuff. Expat says it's been in use for cough since 3400 BCE. They call it joy plant on stone tablets. My problem is I'm allergic to codeine. So for me, codeine just means vomiting, which not the end of the world. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh no, I can't get sick. Don't let me. But adding that to everything else is not going to really help. And all the acid in my throat isn't going to help with the cough. I do know that if I get acid through my nose, this is kind of gross conversation. If I get acid through my nose, that helps with sinus things because it clears out your sinuses and it actually makes you feel better. It makes me feel better, but not really what I'm looking to do. I'm sure it would calm my cough, but I don't want to calm my cough. I want to get the phlegm out of my lungs, but I don't want to do it through vomiting. So, all right, I'm getting to an old one. This is from 10 months ago. I'm so far behind. Clifton Spires 1195. Hello, Scott. Your channel is terrific. I've been watching your clips for information. I'm an American who has lived in Spain for 7 years and Southeast Asia for 2. I've returned to the U.S. for a long visit. Recently, I was in Costa Rica for 2 weeks, and I found that I like Central America and speak Spanish. He found that he speaks Spanish. That's surprising. Now I'm an interest. That's like, has anybody seen Bedazzled with with Brendan Fraser? My gosh, when he finds he can speak Spanish is one of my favorite movie moments. Now I'm interested in going to Leon for 6 to 8 weeks starting this July. Clearly, I missed this. This will be a scouting trip to potentially relocate to Leon. I'm a 60-year-old single divorced man with no children. I've chosen Leon because watching your channel, it appears to have the right stuff. Colonial architecture, access to a beach close enough to the airport, and I feel a good choice to live. I'm looking at lodging. My idea is to book a week on Expedia. I cannot recommend not doing that enough. I don't know a single place here that uses Expedia, but they're all listed on it. And you can figure out what that means. Then find a place suited to my liking for the rest of the summer. I will rent a scooter. This I have experience with from living in Thailand. Your videos are great. I hope to meet you. That is the sound of cats at my window, just so you know. Okay, sorry, just responding to him. Can we see a kitty? I can see the kitty just a little bit. I don't know if you guys can. I'm not sure exactly. It's a little bit hard to tell exactly where it is. Dora says, Buenas noches. Love your intro picture for today, live chat. Oh, my thumbnail. Thanks. I like that one. That one turned out really well. That was I was like, make it like Saturday Night Live, but all me in different costumes. Sometimes I get funny ones. Tomorrow will be my real one made by my daughter for the real live stream. Joseph Lowry. Oh, Joseph Lowry. 4910. Can't believe how late I am on answering these things. Where are these expat groups to meet up with in Leon and Las Bonitas? Coming down, Joe and Betsy, 27th through the 6th of May. Oh my gosh, that was last May, just to be clear. Honestly, there aren't like meetups. The best you can get in Leon that I'm aware of, there may be meetups. There's a lot of expats who get together. I'm not part of those groups, right? Like, I talk to other expats and they're like getting together like regularly, but it's often over like kids getting together or like this intentional like expat meetup. There is one going on at the beach for a dinner coming up, and I don't do those things typically, right? I always say this, not that I'm avoiding the expats, but I'm avoiding expat groups, right? So I do know that I do want to do a channel meetup. We need to do that. Let's do that in February, right? I'm going to be 50 this month. So let's do our first meetup. Let's do it at Twins. Some people throw out some ideas of when that would be good for here in Leon. Just a chance, everybody get together. We'll do dinner at a nice place. They're viewers of the live stream, the owners of that restaurant, and they're very close. So that would be very cool to do. Even if it's just 4 or 5 of us, but if we get 50, we could book the whole place out. That'd be cool. I'm not sure when's good. It's February 4th right now, but I'm not traveling in February to the best of my knowledge. So I do know that on my list for this year is likely Belize, Ecuador, and Brazil, I think. Other than Friday nights at Via Via, I really don't know of expat meetups. People just run into each other. Special events, of course, like the Super Bowl party. There'll be that. That's it. I don't know of anything. It's not like I'm avoiding them. I don't actually know of any existing. It's just not the culture. Like, it's not just me who's like, I'm avoiding expat get-togethers. It's actually kind of all the expats. We all do it together. Some of us, like, I used to have businesses that kind of were meetup places for expats. Now Mike Lopez does with Encantiki, so a lot of expats will go there. And sometimes there's a couple places like that expats just kind of drift towards. But beyond that, it's more of just sometimes we're in the same place at the same time. Sometimes I'll be at Gecko's, right, which is anything but an expat meetup, and just randomly see a few expats that I know and be like, hey, what's going on, right? So that's more of how we end up places than anything else. I'm going to read this one. Juan Carlos Surteco 9535, also 10 months ago. This is for the hotel room at Solam Luxury Hotel in Managua. He says, nice. I usually do Mizonte, and when I have enough dough, I do the Crown, meaning the Crown Plaza. He says, the Pyramid, where Howard Hughes went batshit crazy and lived in a penthouse for 6 months. Oh my gosh. I did not know that Howard Hughes went. I did know he went batshit crazy. I didn't know he lived in the Crown Plaza in Managua. That's nuts. Wow. That is, it's funny how many of us use or have used the Mizonte. I was just watching one of my videos filmed at the Mizonte this morning, I think. And Luke stayed at the Mizonte. We all have stories from the Mizonte. It's really funny. That cat is going crazy back there. I hope from time to time you can see it, like maybe like appearing in the window just a little bit. There's a couple layers of window going on there. What if I move over? Can we see movement? There's like, moths and stuff up against the window. So the cats are like, they're little kittens. They're tiny. There are babies. It's orange juice, chocolate milk, and chimera are the ones that are out there. Watching it. Nika Raider says, always love your content. Scott Saludos from Masatepe. Reach out if you ever swing by this area. Tamugas or nakatamales on me. Tamuga? I actually don't know what tamugas are. Nakatamales, unless you can find vegetarian ones, I'm kind of tough, but I appreciate that. Or both with a good cup of coffee and fresh baked bread. That sounds awesome. Someone was telling me about, it was probably you, a new development in Masatepe. Perhaps that was like really affordable. Some nice looking places. Small, right? Very, very conservative, but really good deals. Janet says, yes, party. All right, let's do it, Janet. Let's figure something out. Luke says, when expats announce they are visiting Matagalpa, I meet them at the Brooklyn Cafe. I'm booked for one night in May at the Crown Plaza renewal of residency. I have honestly never been in the Crown Plaza's rooms. I've been in the Crown Plaza because of it's a convention center, so I've been there for events, but I've never stayed. That's for sure. Looks nice. People say it's good. I always forget about it. It's in such a spot that it's like a great spot, but also forgettable, right? Like I don't know. I don't go down there. Like Plaza Inter is down there, but who goes there, right? Like who's shopping at Plaza Inter? I like Plaza Inter. I just never go shopping there, especially since they took the Burger King out. Its food court is not good. Edwin's here. Hey, Edwin. But the Crown is like it's got views. It's a beautiful old building. It's got that convention center. It's a nice location, and you're definitely safe. It's directly against the army barracks, and it's got the hill behind it, the lake right there. It's right downtown. You can walk to a lot of stuff, but the Hilton Princess and the Intercontinental and the Seminole and all that area is just so much more lively. In general, it's so much more connected, at least to the expat activities. I feel like the Crown is much more non-expat targeted. Not that I want to be in expat targeted things, just the needs of an expat tend to be of a certain nature. Don Timoteo says, anyone mentioned the fire in the La Colonia in Managua? No, which La Colonia? I've not even heard about that. We had the big fire last week in our hospital here, which I've still not heard details about. Oh, Luke says I freaked out about the Intercontinental prices. Yeah, I don't even look. It's like $200 a night. It's crazy. I hear they're really nice, but yeah. Now the restaurants in the Intercontinental though, like staying in the Intercontinental and having 4 awesome restaurants. To be clear, I've not eaten at all of them. I've eaten at 2 of them. And both were really good for me. My daughter, though, went to the one really expensive pasta place, and the pasta they gave her tasted like just noodles with mayonnaise. It was a fail, like a pretty big fail. Place was super fancy, service was great, they were really nice. The pasta was terrible. My pasta, I got a lobster pasta dish. That was excellent. So could have been just a fluke in either direction. But I've eaten at Steak and Lobster there. That was amazing. The market there looks okay, and their sushi place looks good. So it's nice having a place with a lot of things in it like that. And those are restaurants that stand on their own. Whereas like in the Hilton, they've got restaurants, but I'm not sure you would go to them if you weren't staying in the Hilton. Silver says, where did you stay coming into Managua? I've been staying at Hyatt Place. Or where do I stay coming into Managua? I stay at a number of places, and I like to move around. I recently stayed at the Nicti, which I really like. They were great in Las Colinas. Sometimes stay at the Hilton Princess. I'm a Hilton member. The Hyatt, I forget to mention. Yeah, they're really nice, connected to the Gallerias. That is a good location, but expensive. The Intercontinental is great, but I don't stay there because it's really expensive. The place I stay the most is the Doubletree. It actually is fancier than the Princess, but I often get it a little bit cheaper. And they know me there, like know me. And I'm a gold member, so I get all kinds of points, and like there's a bunch of benefits to going there. My kids know it inside and out. They really find it comfortable. They like the pool. They don't swim that much, but if they are going to, they like the pool there. They love that they get cookies when they check in. They know us. We get extra cookies. It's got really easy parking, and it's right in the midst of where we like to go: Santo Domingo, Villa Fontana, Los Robles, Las Colinas. So it's easy to go there and be like, we're just in the middle of things. And it feels like home because we've been staying there for 5 years. Now, we stayed at the Princess before that. Coming from the U.S., like anytime we didn't stay in Hilton properties when we first arrived, right? Because it's like, yes, Nicaragua. But then after a while of being in Nicaragua, once in a while, we don't want to be in America, but sometimes you want a little bit of feeling like back home. And, every few months, camping out in an American hotel for 1 or 2 nights is a nice way to get a little bit of that Americanism while still being in Managua, right? And so we will use the Doubletree pretty often, but if we get a really good deal, sometimes we'll switch to the Princess and either use or gain points at those, and they've both been great. And again, being a gold member, we're automatically getting upgrades and stuff, and so it tends to make it worth it. There's a new place just down from the Doubletree, new-ish, the Wyack. That looks really good, but I haven't stayed there. When I'm by the airport, I stay at the Hotel Munch. I have used the Hotel X. They were okay. The Munch was cheaper and nicer, so I switched. Okay, let's see. No, and I think those are the places I've stayed at. I also sometimes do Airbnb. I've got a video coming out real soon, maybe Friday, probably sometime this weekend. That's from several months ago, staying at a 2-bed, 1 bath, full condo Airbnb in Santo Domingo. I will definitely stay there again when it benefits me to have 2 bedrooms. That is nice. Way cheaper than staying in a hotel and getting 2 bedrooms. And nice if we're doing like a long weekend and we want to be able to cook. And, my kids are always bringing home leftovers and stuff. And so having a fridge and like a kitchen and a dining room, and really we did find the Airbnb, which I like a lot. I don't know if I want to tell everybody about it. It's going to be flooded. There's several of them there, so it should be okay. Has a private pool, had loads of space. Like we had a little living room we could use, and now we know like how to use it. So I'm gonna bring like my Raspberry Pi and plug it in, and we'll have like all of our movies from home and stuff. Like that'll be really nice. The internet was decent. It had a full kitchen, so like with a dining area, so I could like set up my laptop and everything there, and really be able to work. It's in a nice area. We know we can walk to several restaurants. We can walk to a cafe. If I had to, I could even walk to the Gallerias from there. Like it's a nice spot. I really like it. And it's more expensive than a hotel room, but when you factor in but we get 2 bedrooms and a kitchen, it's only a little bit more than a hotel. So we'll probably do that a bit. And that, when we go, it tends to be a lot of we end up on different schedules. So we'll have some things we want to do. The kids are always wanting to explore food. But my eldest will often be like, oh, I don't feel great from the travel, and she'll want a nap, and she'll want to do things with food, but then she'll have lots of leftovers. And then my youngest and I are like, we want to go explore things and do things. And having the 2 bedrooms and a full spot really works out well for that. So like we can treat it a lot more like we're at home. When we go into Managua, currently it's way too often like we're on vacation and you got to go because we drive in, spend an afternoon, go, try to do the things, get to the hotel, crash, get up, do as much stuff, get home. But if we can go for a long weekend, have a couple nights, and relax, then it's like, okay, now we're acting like we live in Managua for the weekend, and we can enjoy our home time, just sit out by the pool. We can watch some TV. The kids can do their own things as if they're home, and it's a very different thing. And that property really lets us do that. So, Edwin says, you may not believe it. It will continue cold temperatures at early morning hours, but not as bad as the last 72 hours. I've not really noticed that much. It's not that cold. Luke says, Hotel Mazante in Managua for $800 for a month. Expat says that's a good price. It's a pretty good place. Don Timotejo says it was La Colonia in Barrio Granada. Okay, I don't go to that one. I don't think I've ever been into... I don't go to La Colonia in Managua very often. How bad was the fire? Silver says, wow, $800 a month is good. How much is a hotel in Leon for a month? I've never tried to stay in a hotel for a month in Leon, but I would think you'd be able to beat that, probably. So 800 is... so if you do... Let's just do this. If you do $10 a night, that's 300. If you do 20 a night, that's 600. If you do 25 a night, that's 750. So 800 is it's like $26, $27 a night, which is a good price, but doable, right? So I don't know if you'll find a place as fancy as the Mazante for that price, but you'll definitely find things at that price range within the city. Mazante is basically a hostel, has a nice pool, has breakfast. So you won't be able to... I don't think the balconies will come in that cheap, but it might for a month. I like the balconies quite a lot. Great location. The El Sole might be able to be that cheap. Poco a Poco might be that cheap. There's a lot of places in Leon to check about that might be able to come up with a deal for you in that price range. Not going to get much cheaper, and obviously not the fancy places, but it's the Super La Colonia. The fire started in a dumpster. Oh, that sucks. Expat says, I guess I will come for a month and maybe extend it to another month. Silver says, I will check out the DoubleTree. Expat says, I only need 1 bedroom. I'm single. Expat says, if it is only $800 a month for a hotel, why do I have to bring $5,000? Why are you bringing money? Who told you to bring $5,000? Janet says, oh, I think it's cold at night where we are. I'm getting messages that I need to check. I will read the message from my wife. Holy crap, that banana cake is good. Sorry, I just need to answer this. Hi. My dog came over to say hi. How you doing, sweetie? Are you trying to be on the show? Is that what you're doing? What you doing? She's being a little bit restless. Jan says, oh, I think it's cold at night where we are. Don says, the fire could be seen from the Messiah Highway. Wow. Jan says they were charging $400 at Los Balcones recently. $400 for a month? Seriously? Wow, that's good. That's a really nice hotel. It's not. Be clear, it's not a fancy hotel, but it's a quite nice hotel. Edwin says, yeah, La Chureca fire is still continuing and getting firefighters and volunteers exhausted. Wow. Edwin says, even from airborne and latest satellite images as well. He says, how can I protect my valuables from petty crime? I've never had to do anything about that. Like basic normal outside the US, because the US is really minor on minor crime. Like it really is good about it. But like, you know, don't have a bulging wallet. Don't throw money around. Don't carry cash. Don't bring $5,000. But, you know, people are like, oh, you got to worry about your phone. You got to do all this. I walk around with my phone exposed all the time. I do nothing about it. I leave it on tables half the time, right? I do nothing to really make a point of keeping, you know, I'll carefully like put money in my pockets and like try to make it less accessible. If you have pockets with zippers, you know, whatever, that stuff really makes a difference. But it's... you know, Nicaraguans will be like, you can't have a phone in your lap while you're driving down the highway. Of course you can, right? People are not reaching in the windows to grab things. People are not coming up on motorcycles and snatching things. People are not suddenly grabbing things off your table and running for it. Would I leave a phone on the edge of a table in a restaurant? Yes, but not on purpose, and I wouldn't recommend it. I would only do it by accident. Don't do that stuff, but you shouldn't do it anywhere, realistically, right? But it's nothing like other places. It's not like Argentina or something where this is like a real fear you have to worry about. In all my time here, right, we've talked about I had some soap stolen from my house. I had someone try to steal some broken fans we left outside. I once had a guy slap the last of a beer can out of my hand to try to get it. You know, it's not the kind of thing, like, what do you do in the United States about it, right? Probably be a little bit more conscientious than that, but you don't have to sit around and think that, oh, petty crime is like this major thing to have to worry about. Just don't tempt people, right? Don't leave things unattended. Don't leave doors unlocked, right? Like in a hotel, don't leave your window open. Don't leave the door open and not be there, or leave things within reach of the window, right? Don't make it that people are going to walk by and be like, you know, I could just, okay, that's a lot of money. I should go, right? Don't do that stuff. But those are things you probably wouldn't do anyway, right? You're almost certainly going to, just naturally be like, no, that's way too easy to grab. Don says, wow, I had no idea it had gotten that bad. Jan says, it was ground floor, inside, no balcony. Oh, I'm sure. For 400, but that is, 400 is so cheap. Luke says, I wear an Apple Watch with a I think he means bright white wristband. No one is reaching for my watch. Yeah, I wear an Apple Watch decently often, not all the time, but I wear one quite often. I have a very obvious iPhone. But sometimes I'm out with laptops. I carry cameras all the time. I'm out in big events with cameras all the time, and tripods and recording devices and stuff, and I'm often not with them. Sometimes I'll have my GoPro sitting places recording while I'm not with it. And I'm not saying those things are great, but I've never had a problem. Which, knock on wood. Edwin says, yeah, the dumpster yard behind La Colonia in Distrito 5 near Manolo Morales Hospital continued until 15 hours when started. Even people who lived near it had to wear masks so they aren't breathing the smoke. Wow. Luke says, attempted pickpocket on New Year's Eve in the crowd during an event. A couple of people reported like big plazas in big crowds when they were distracted or kids were keeping them busy or something. You definitely do get pickpockets, right? Much more than in the U.S., but much less than Europe. Edwin says, Don Timoteo and has been on fire a long time and adding dry season winds, cold fronts, and upcoming March and April summertime where grass, countryside, hills, and mountains are so dried up. Expossess says, so for a month, maybe extended to 2 months, what's a good budget for a single first-timer? Everything comes down to what you're doing for food. That's really your biggest expense. Even staying in a much more expensive hotel. And it depends, right? More expensive hotels are going to have more luxuries, more food, more whatever. But it's how much you're going to eat day to day really, really just varies so much, and does for anyone, right? It's if you're going to eat street food and try to keep it to an insane budget, can you eat on $150 a month? Yeah. Are you going to like it? Probably not. But will you survive? Yes, you'll still be here at the end of the month. What do most expats eat in a month is quite a lot, right? My grocery bill, now it's not just for me, but I have over $1,000 of groceries per month. So your variance can be just extreme, right? You start going out to some nicer restaurants, especially the touristy ones, or, and this is something to be aware of, many Managuans especially really look for expensive restaurants because they don't have a lot of places to spend money as middle class. And so instead of having activities to spend money on, often they flaunt money by going to overpriced restaurants. So there's a number of places that are not outrageously overpriced, but they are extremely overpriced for Nicaragua. And you may find yourself eating quite expensive dinners and just being like, well, I talked to some expats. They said this place is good, right? And you go in and you're like, wow, dinner was $50. And then when you talk to most of us, we're like, yeah, we don't know anyone who would eat there, right? The food wasn't that good, was it? Oh, no, it wasn't that good. It was edible, yeah, but it wasn't like special, right? And like, yeah, the service is probably good. It's probably air conditioned. It's probably a beautiful venue, but right, that's like a tourist thing or like a specific, what we call Managua premium show-off thing. And so that's watch out for those things because if you're in Managua, for example, and staying at the Mazante, right, and you're like, where could I go? And you're looking online, you could find some real, Primitivo, Nativo, the Amazonia Resto Bar, right? You could pretty quickly add up and have a pretty expensive, not crazy, not American expensive, but a pretty expensive food budget. Just to give you an example, and remember, I take my kids to Managua and we do this stuff. So my kids are foodies, I'm a foodie. We don't have this stuff in Leon, so we make a point of it. We know it's going to be expensive. But we will go and have breakfast at Mugs in the Gallerias. This is one of the most expensive cafes around. Now, it's nothing compared to Costa Rica, but it's quite expensive and excellent, right? So we go do that, or go to Cafe Molino and get brunch, right? So we're talking about something pretty expensive. Then lunch probably won't be that bad, especially as we had a big breakfast, but we'll go someplace decent for lunch, and that's going to, run $20 a meal probably. And then for dinner, most of the time, they're like, well, they want to go to a fancy sushi place or a big fancy place at Intercontinental or something like that, right? So we end up going out and it's $30, $40 per person for dinner. So having $100+ per person food budget in Managua happens in real life, even to those of us who live pretty cheaply most of the time. So those decisions will be huge, right? Cooking for yourself or street food or really carefully going to very low-cost restaurants absolutely can be done. And those of us who live here typically are doing a lot of those things. We're not spending tons on food. But when you're just visiting, you're probably not used to all of the same things we're used to. Like the breakfast that we get. I got breakfast the other day. I feel like we spent 80 cord for 2 breakfast, right? So just shy of a bit shy of $3. Is that really how cheap it was? For 2 breakfasts, right? But is it going to be a breakfast you want to do nearly every day? For me, I can do it nearly every day. But you may not want to. I'm used to it, right, at this point. Chris Pierre says he's spot on. Expossessed. Typically, you're not on the menu. You're not on the menu unless you look tasty. Oh, about the pickpockets and stuff. Think ahead. Be ahead. Carry yourself well. You'll be okay. Luke says hotel with free breakfast, one less to buy or travel for. Definitely, if you can find a place that does included breakfast, get used to that. How do you break big bills there? Well, I mean, the biggest bill you would ever carry is a 500, and pretty much anyone can break it. Because that's only $14. So there are 1,000 cord bills. There's a good chance you'll never see one while you're here. So since 500 is the largest you'll ever encounter, and I've never seen an ATM give thousands. I'm sure someone does, but I've never seen it. So you'll start with 500s. Taxis can break a 500. Every store can break a 500. Now, maybe little tiny street places. I can't remember ever having to deal with a thing where I couldn't break a 500. Going to like the tortilla lady, that's pretty obnoxious because that's not even 100. Certainly, the moment you break a 500, you want to keep some of the change from that. But, every little thing you do, you're going to be getting change immediately, and it's no big deal. So, yeah, because $14 is the largest bill, it's just easy to break. Luke says Papusa Place, 2 blocks from Mizante, for example, large meal could be as little as $7 versus Tonelli Tomahawk Steak at 32. Tonelli's Tomahawk was only 32. So here in Leon, you can get a Tomahawk as high as 68, or could, and we can get a large Papusa meal for more like $4. So the range is pretty crazy. Luke says, don't carry over $20 US bills. Don't carry US bills at all in general. Not that they're wrong or a problem, just they're asking for more complications. Coincidentally, that's what you get from the ATM is $20 bills. But don't pull US from the ATMs. As long as you're here, just pull cord. Keep it simple. If you're living here full time, more complicated things to shave a percent here or there, maybe. But for just visiting, stick to cord. D. Gilbert is here. He says, hey, Scott. Luke says, the ATMs allow you to pull US or Cordoba. Try to use cord for local purchases. The only time you'd use dollars, but again, don't get them specially for this, right? You can always use cord, is if you're paying rent or other large things. Most of the time, large things, especially when you're traveling, pay with credit card, right? Hotel bills, for example, pay with credit card. Car rentals, pay with credit card. Many restaurants, if you are going to go out to a nicer place, probably pay with credit card. Keep the cord for tips, keep the cord for street purchases and that stuff. And I mean, I went a year here without touching US currency, right? You don't need to use it. There's no reason to have it, unless you're doing large things. And credit cards work all over the place. Diego says, hello. Janet says, we have had moments that someone couldn't give change, but they always have someone go for that change, even a taxi once or twice. That's true. I've had places that are like, oh, yeah, and they run to another shop and get change. That is pretty common. Diego says, private medical clinics also charge dollars. Charge dollars? They're not allowed to. They have to take Cordoba. They may try to convince you to give dollars, but they don't have to. You can pay with the Cordoba equivalent, though. I guarantee if you're like, I'm going to call somebody that you're not taking Cordoba, they're going to take Cordoba because that they have to. D. Gilbert says, Scott, what were your big drawbacks on living in Granada that you didn't like? Been here a week and I absolutely love it. I mean, it fits my needs. Maybe that's where we differ. It could be, right? It's not that it's a terrible town, but so the big thing was, so there's a couple things. One is it's a very small town, so it doesn't have a lot of resources, but it does have a lot of hotels and restaurants. So if those are really high priorities for you, and I mean they're pretty high for me, not hotels so much, but restaurants to live there, it's good, right? But the selection's not phenomenal. It's not Managua good. Yes, the border entry fee at the airport is only US dollars, but that's because it's the government and it's before you're inside the country, so the internal Cordoba laws don't apply. The restaurant scene is good, but the prices are high, so you tend to go out to eat a lot less, unless you just have loads of money and you don't care. But over time, you really notice, oh, I'm paying double other places, like quite literally double. So that is I could be living a lot cheaper. And rents are 50 to 100% higher than most of the other cities. So those things are big negatives. And the city being really small very quickly becomes this is a very small place, right? That may not be a problem. And you're not far from Messiah and not that far from Managua. So it's okay. But it's not a big city, and you definitely feel that. It has beautiful architecture. Downtown is beautiful. Traffic is a little bit bad. The biggest thing, though, beyond the cost definitely wear on you when you realize you could have so much more for so much less around the corner, is everybody's a tourist. The place is loaded with tourists, and the number of expats who stay there is kind of high. And the number of tourists that is there is very high. And that creates a very tough situation. One, because you're just surrounded by tourists all the time, which at first seems fun and then eventually becomes really annoying. And two, you realize that you always look like a tourist everywhere you go. And that takes some fun out of it, right? Like you never stop looking like a tourist. And that creates the third problem, which is no local is ever going to see you as anything but a transient tourist and or an enclave liver. And so those are things I wanted nothing to do with, right? Now it's a decent city. There's places I would like to stay. The waterfront can be cool. Downtown is really neat, but do I really want to go out on the calzada for food on a regular basis? No, I like going there once in a while. I don't like being there all the time. Do I like eating at those restaurants all the time? No, they're very touristy restaurants. Like they don't feel like your hometown restaurant. You don't feel like going out to dinner in Granada, even at a decent place with decent food, in no way feels like going out to an equivalent place in Leon, right? In Leon, it's like, this is my community restaurant. This is our community, right? And every single person is from the community. And when you go to a nice place on the calzada, you're like, wow, nobody here has ever been here before or will come again, right? Everyone's just passing through. And it's not true. Some of them, sometimes it's us from Leon stopping in because we're like, something different, right? But you're very much a tourist and you will never stop being a tourist. And if that's, some people want to be caught in the tourist bubble and to stay there. Right. Some people like, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, that is what they like. Right. Yeah. Think about the people who want to live in Disney World. Do they want it to feel like their hometown pub? No, of course not. It never will. Right. Going to Disney World, even if you go every day for the rest of your life, the cast members are going to start to recognize you and be like, that guy never leaves. But everyone else, to all the people in the park, all the guests, you're just another guest for forever. You will never be a local. No one will, right? It's Disney World. You will never be seen as a local. You'll never not be seen as just another tourist. You will always be just tourist. And Granada is basically like that. I lived there for a while and got to know people and, had a house and walked everywhere and didn't do touristy things. I was living like I lived there. And yet it never stopped feeling like I was visiting. I felt more of a visitor at the end of living in Granada than on my first day in Leon. Now, partially that's because I lived in Granada before I lived in Leon, right? So that is a contributing factor for sure. But almost anywhere in the country, you can pretty much go rent a place and people will be like, you rented a place here? Well, welcome to the community, right? I don't know why you did that, but all right. And in Granada, even if you're there for years, you're like, this is my town, this is my place, I'm a part of the community, I'm doing all these things. Everyone will still be like, sure, until your lease is up, right? Nothing will ever make their brains perceive you as part of the community because it's just so unlikely and so uncommon, and you would be such a fluke. And so that really... for me, I want nothing to do with that for my personal experience. Like, that is not pleasant for me. That's the opposite of what I want. And when you tell people, right, both expats and Nicaraguans, I live in Granada, boom. Any amount of thinking that you're, like, connected to the country is over, right? Not as much as if you said San Juan del Sur, but mostly, right? You are a tourist to everybody. That's just what you are. And you will have to fight really hard to get any recognition for really being Nicaraguense in any way. You could be here for 10 years and everyone will just be like, oh, but you're a Granada expat. Like, okay, right? Whereas come to Leon and immediately it's like, oh, okay. Well, you're checking things out. You're, whatever. You're still going to get that. You probably live in this like area of Leon. You're probably in the tourist center, but it's nothing like Granada, which is nothing like San Juan del Sur. And let me tell you, when I lived in La Barrio, that's what I got, right? Mostly downtown. And it's like, okay, that's, you're testing the waters. You're taking it seriously. But nobody was like, they're permanent. When I moved to Sutiava and got out of any possible misconstruing it as a tourist zone, I can be anywhere, right? Anywhere in the country, and people are like, where do you live? Oh, I hear you live in Leon. Yeah. That's a lot of expats like Leon. And I say, no, I live in Sutiava. And anywhere in the country, people instantly see their face change. They're like, oh, you're a Nicaraguan, right? Just like that. And so those things are stigmas. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but they are, right? That's not. I really love being seen as a member of my community and a part of part of Nicaragua and all these things. That's really important for me, and I just couldn't get that in Grenada in any way. And I've lived in a lot of countries, and I've never lived in a tourist area like that before. So I was so much more connected to all these places that I lived that our experience in Nicaragua was actually decently negative when we first lived here. And it took a lot to convince my wife to move back and be like, it was Grenada that was the problem, not Nicaragua. We picked the wrong place. And we liked Grenada. We just didn't like it to live in. We liked it for visiting. It was fantastic to visit. But once you're there for a while, you're like, oh, I never stopped being in that visiting mode. And that's the issue. And like, if I go to Matagalpa, I feel less like a visitor than I did living in Grenada. I can go to towns that I never really go to, and I may be like, well, I don't really know my way around, but at least everyone doesn't look at me as a tourist. Diego says, the government forcing all prices being in Cordobas is so annoying. No small businesses obey the law anyway, and the big ones just have their internal pricing in dollars and convert to Cord for display. I mean, that their internal pricing, they have to accept Cordobas, so the pricing is Cordobas. What does internal pricing in dollars mean? I mean, you could make it in euros or yuan. It doesn't make any difference. It is super weird that Nicaraguans don't know how much Cordobas are worth. That I find weird. In Digital says, Granada's a tourist area. D. Gilbert says, I guess I was looking at it from the standpoint of it has a great gym. Every town has a great gym. I love being by the water, but almost every place has some water. Lake is so big, it sounds like an ocean. Leon has an actual ocean. The locals are super nice, sure, and the weather is my perfect temperature. Right. But have you compared that to the rest of Nicaragua, right? So let's think about that. It has a great gym. This is a gym country, right? So there's good gyms everywhere. Love being by the water. So Jinotega, Rivas, Masaya, Managua, Leon, Bluefields, and Bilwi, all by water. Lake is so big it sounds like an ocean. About half of those are actual ocean, half are similar lakes. Locals are super nice everywhere, but I think you'll find the locals are much nicer outside of Grenada. Not that the people are nicer, right? Nothing about the Grenadians, but that, well, famously, Grenada's less friendly than the rest of the country, but that's probably stigma. But it's because of the tourist thing, you will be treated normally much better in the rest of the country. They're polite, they're nice, but apart. Whereas in much of the country, you'll have a much better connection. And the weather is actually one of the reasons we didn't like it in Grenada, even though its actual temperatures are less than Leon. Its wind was less. We find Leon more pleasant, even though the temperatures are higher. So for us, I mean, everybody likes different temperatures, right? But that was... Diego says, in Grenada, you're another white man. In another part of the country, you're our white man. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I am the one gringo in Sutiava, especially in Veracruz, right? That's not really true. There's another one up the hill. But, like, that's it. Like, everybody knows who I am. They may not know who I am, but they know who I am, right? They're like, wow, that guy, right? And it really is a different feeling. I think you should, D. Gilbert, you really should test the rest of the country. Granada will feel the best at the beginning because it's a tourist hub. Everyone knows to coddle you like a tourist. There's way more selection for tourists. All that stuff is built to make you feel comfortable. It's there to get your money. That's what Granada is. It's a money-making tourist hub for the country. But if you go and actually spend time in the rest of the country and get past that barrier of comfort, then I think you'll find that all those factors are likely better somewhere else. Maybe not. Some things about Granada people just like. Some people gravitate to it. There's, TJ from the channel loves Granada. That's where he's chosen to be, right? It happens. But by and large, I think you'll find all those things, it's like Disney World. Like I was saying, when you first get to Disney World, everything is designed to make you feel comfy and to like it, to siphon your money off. But you'll never feel like a local, and you'll never get cheap. And over time, cost matters, right? Unless you're a billionaire, those things eventually add up. Maybe you can afford it. Maybe you can afford to live in Granada for forever. That's not a problem. But do you want to pay that tax forever? That's the question. But in anywhere you go, right? If you go to London and stay in the tourist zone, if you go to Paris and you stay in the Latin Quarter, as a tourist, okay, you're going to Paris and you're like, Scott, I want to stay in Paris. Where do I go? Scott, I'm going to Rome. Where do I go? All right, Paris, Latin Quarter, that's where you stay. But so in Paris, you stay in the Latin Quarter. In Rome, you stay just north of the Colosseum, right? And there's these zones that are crazy touristy. Everything you need is easy, and they're fantastic when you're there for a day or a week or a month, right? I'm going to be in Paris for a month, which I do. Don't try to be a local for a month. Enjoy your time, right? Go see the museums, ride the transit, do all the things, see the sights. It's only a month, right? Don't make it hard on yourself. Stay in the Latin Quarter, right? Or wherever your fancy hotel is that you want to stay in. But you'll never get the Parisian experience because you're not there for long enough. But if you were to stay there longer, if you're like, I'm moving to Paris, I don't know, I'm not moving to Paris, but I'm gonna go stay for a few years, right? Okay, should I stay in the Latin Quarter? Oh hell no! What is wrong with you? No, you'll be a tourist the whole time. You'll always be seen as a tourist. You'll always pay tourist prices. You'll always have Americanized food to keep you happy. You'll never get to know what it's like living in Paris. You'll never evaluate Paris. Not really. Oh, there's a thing where you make a leap, and it's like, oh, it's a completely different thing. So think of it that way. Granada is like the Latin Quarter of Nicaragua, and it's perfect for certain things, but once you hit a certain threshold, it becomes a crutch, and it becomes a barrier. So that's why I say I recommend Granada for your first week. But then see the sights, do the things, then start to try to see it through the eyes of a local rather than the eyes of a tourist. And maybe you'll come back to it when you experience other things, but likely you won't. Likely you'll get out and go, it's probably not the ideal place that I was picturing. Not because it's bad, but because other places offer the things that you probably like about it are probably prevalent in the country. And you're just perceiving the nice things about Nicaragua as being Granada, and not Granada itself. But maybe it is Granada. Maybe it's Pizza Valle. You went to Pizza Valle. You found Scott's favorite pizza place. You're like, this is the pizza I want to eat every day. I don't want to go to some other city. I can't get this. Legit. So, everyone has their own thing. That being said, the gringo of Guanuca needs to sign off. Audio, y'all. Luke took off. He had a long day online. Diego says, we definitely have a low bar to have people being culturally Nicaraguan. Spend a few months here, learn a few words, try some foods. You're Nicaraguan. Janet said, yes, I agree. One good thing here in Leon is a frequent breeze, and that makes it comfortable to go outside and do things. And that white person thing, I'm that woman married to Moncho. Yeah, Leon, we have a lot more breeze. And so some people have said they got a bit of breeze in Granada. Obviously, it matters where you live. But for us, we found it very stale, and that made it feel very warm. And when we got to Leon, we're like, everyone told us how hot Leon is, and it is. But very quickly, we were like, but it's more comfortable than what we were used to. So that's fine with us. Like, we were okay with Granada's heat. We just thought it was pretty hot. This is less hot. We moved to Leon thinking it was going to be hotter than Granada, and we were willing to put up with that. And we ended up not having to. So that's pretty cool. That we found it to be cooler. And definitely having the ocean right there is a huge thing. Checking all my messages going on. How long have we been on? This is not supposed to be... Oh, over 2 hours. This was not supposed to be... No, only an hour and a half. Why did it do that? It said we were on for 2 hours, and then it jumped way down. Diego says, it's so true that we don't know how much Cordobas are worth. All purchases above 100,000 are automatically dollar purchases. That's kind of true. Talking to Nicaraguans about house prices, they, like, lose all context of money. It's really weird. D. Gilbert says, that's a fair point. I'm getting sick of people asking me to do the same excursions over and over and over. And it's only been a little bit. Think about that in 6 months or 2 years when every activity is like, oh, it's just people seeing Granada for the first time, and you're like caught in a Groundhog Day tourist loop. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is a problem. Diego says, even when you go to the bank to lend money, you go and ask for a U.S. loan. Oh, that's weird. Nika's in the U.S. news. That is never good. The U.S. has to keep something to keep people distracted from all the terrible things going on. D. Gilbert says, I want to visit Leon in March, but I believe that is the hottest month of the year there. No, April's the hottest. But it's a bad time. Here's the thing. March is fine. The whole, like, it's the hottest time. It's still cooler than Granada, and you're cool with Granada, so what's the issue? Like, and right now, it's cold. The whole, like, being afraid of Leon and its heat is really minor. Like, this is Nicaragua. The whole country is hot. And we're not Chinandega by any stretch. Chinandega, even for us, is like, woo. But, you know, downtown Leon in the heat, yeah, it can be a hot day, and March is on the hot side, but no, it's not bad. TJ says, yo, in digital says, if you like culture or want to do business, Granada or Managua. Is that really true? How much Granada's not a business or cultural center. It's a tourist center. But cultural centers, Masaya and Managua and Didiamba. And business centers, obviously Managua or Matagalpa. And to some lesser degree, Chinandega and Esteli. I would never think of Granada for business. That seems really weird. Chris Pierre says, that's it. If you're buying the surface, that's what you get. If you want a deeper relationship, get deeper in the country, or more specifically in culture, there are things that money won't buy. Actually, things that money make it harder to experience. Expat says, if an expat marries a local, how does that change things? From an acceptance standpoint, it does quite a lot. It still depends on you to some degree. There's a lot of people. I guess So there is. Oh, Brian's here. This is doomed now. TJ says the moon was cool tonight. Oh, I just saw that picture on the expat group. Brian says it was TJ. Nice sight driving home. TJ says I sent a picture to Scott. I think you sent it in the group. Oh, you sent it to me too. I saw it in the group. I'm still in the Granada group. That is a cool moon over. I'm not sure what street that is. Is that a development? So if an expat marries, so there's a lot of expats in my experience, right? I've seen a lot of expats who, Carmen says, what? What are you saying? What to? I've seen a lot of expats who marry locals to Nicaraguans, and they kind of turn into an expat family, right? They go live in an expat community, and they often travel, probably to the U.S. And there's a ton of their Nicaraguanness seems to go away. Like they just stop most of their Nicaraguan activities, and really, I mean, the Nicaraguan spouse doesn't stop being Nicaraguan, obviously, but they can easily fall into the expat is the guest and is uncomfortable with things. So I just know people who end up in basically enclave living. And that's fine if that's what you want. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just that's where the way you end up. And you get some who end up in a very mixed, where they tend to kind of gravitate between both communities. And you definitely find people who are like just completely into the Nicaraguan side of the relationship, and they basically become locals and are part of every little thing locally, right? And it's it really can go any direction, and so much of it comes down to, especially you as the expat, I think you're more likely to drive that. Now, of course, the Nicaraguan could be like, I'm not putting up with being an expat, or I really want to live the expat life. Let's leave this behind, right? Either side could be a major factor. But I think far more often is an expat who's like, I just can't fit in. I can't do it. Or has no interest, right? But if you as an expat are like, oh my gosh, not only do I want to be Nicaraguan, but I also married a Nicaraguan, and I want to, completely integrate, almost always your spouse is going to be like, fantastic, let's do this. And everyone is going to be supportive of that. So I think if you're open to, and especially pushing for becoming more integrated, then that's what you will get almost certainly. But if you really pull away from that, then you will lose out on it. TJ says it's a picture going to the lake. Diego says we are conceptually dollarized economy. Most companies I've worked for, except pulperias, we first decide how much USD we want to charge and then convert it to cord for display. I guess just dollarized from a thinking perspective. Oh, Brian reminds you to like and subscribe. Thanks, Brian. D. Gilbert says, maybe I make a shirt that says Yo vivo aquí, and so the locals quit asking me to do tourist things. They would just think that you got a secondhand shirt like everyone else. Nicaraguans do not read shirts because their shirts they don't read. Like it's like the idea that our shirts say things for us to like that's foreign. Yeah, no, the tourist will always ask you to do tourist things. That will never stop. You could work your way into being the mayor of Granada. It would still happen. Jan says, I think I wanted to be a local, so it's good to be where I am. She means married to a local. Diego says, I definitely relate to a foreigner. Better if they are married to a local. Most of the time, they understand things of Nicaraguan family living that other expats don't. I think that's what he tried to say. Janet says, that's a good idea, and never wear tourist merch. Except the Nicaraguans wear tourist merch constantly. So who knows? But local people wear English shirts that they can't say. Right, everyone. they're constantly wearing U.S. sports teams. We see so many things from like our hometown in New York, like tiny little villages. We'll see their shirts walking around. Sometimes I'll stop people and be like, "I'm sorry, can I take a picture? I gotta take a picture of this for my dad." Like, you're wearing a shirt from my dad's little village in Ohio. Can I just, it's funny stuff like that happens all the time. TJ says, I don't get hassled that much in the park anymore unless I'm with other people. Well, it's good that it wears off to some degree. Even here in what? In Leon, in Central Park, I'll still get seen as a tourist pretty easily, at least some of the time, but certainly not all the time, and much less. But I don't hang out down there. But in Sutiaba, I'm never seen as a tourist, right? Even by people who've never seen me. Though you can't be a tourist, you're in Sutiaba. TJ says, I walk through there almost every day. Do prenuptial agreements hold up in court? Yeah. This is a legal country, right? So the law is generally the law. Prenups are pretty common, I would say. It's not like the U.S. where the law is discretionary. Like the idea that something has to hold up in court, like it's the law. Like, why would it have to hold up? I think most Nicaraguans would be a little bit surprised by like the concept. Like, I don't think they really understand how much in the U.S. we're like, okay, we did all these things right. We did everything the way you're supposed to. We did all these agreements. Now, years later, we find out if the government is going to honor the law. And there's no way to know, right? We could take bets on it. We got percentages, but we don't, you don't actually know. Like, nothing is legal in the U.S. Everything's just a guess. But that's not how it is here. So it's a very different thing. TJ says, I had a guy come up to me and said he's not going to bother me because he knows I live here. That's funny. I don't get hassled even now on the Calzada because I still know some of the guys who work the Calzada, and they come up and they'll like give me hugs and stuff because I lived there for a long time. So it's funny because like I'll be like, oh, my friend's gonna be there, and then every time I'm in Granada, I'll be out on the Calzada, and my friend will come up and give me a hug, and we'll take a picture together. And I remember being there in 2019. And sending a picture to my wife, and she's like, wait, is that who I think it is? I'm like, yeah, we ran into him. She's like, what? You just ran into, like, how did you just run into him? And then I was there in, I want to say 2021, and ran into him, and then was definitely there in 2022 with Brian, and ran into him, Brian, who just posted, and so many times since. It's just every time I see him, and it's so funny that I just always run into him. Diego says, I love the New York shirt constantly. I got it from Apaca, and it's a nice shirt. Expat says, Diego says, you can just marry with split assets. Yeah, prenups are generally to protect the assets that you bring to the situation. I'm definitely feeling a lot better than I have been the last several days because I've made it this far, and I haven't been able to go this long without just hacking and hacking. I realize I'm coughing a bit, right? That's happening, but like some of these days I was basically in tears trying to do the show and coughing so much. In Digital says, I first came there with a nonprofit. This is where they go after being in the jungle. This is where they go after being in the jungle. Oh, Granada. TJ says, I've had 2 groups of family members visit me in the last couple of weeks, and I get a lot of attention when they go with me. But other than that, I don't get bothered that much. Having family visit, I wonder what that's like. We have had 0 family. None of my family, none of my wife's family, none of my business partner's family, no one. In 2022, Brian came down and visited me, and who's on here, and my friend Ryan came down in 2015 and visited. That is it. 11 years in Nicaragua. The total number of visitors. Someone's going to be like, wait, no, my friend Kat came down. That's right. My friend Kat came down. She didn't come to visit. She came to move and then came down, and then she just didn't internalize, you're not allowed to work here. And she came down. She's like, well, I'm just going to, work. And we're like, no, you can't just work here. And she's like, but I'll just, like, she couldn't understand it was its own country. That was beyond her. And she ended up leaving and living with her mother. But so that's 3 people who've come down. Has there been anyone else? Oh, my friend Kim came down. Brian knows Kim, actually. That's funny. So I guess there's been a couple people, but no family. D. Gilbert says, also, though I feel the place I'm staying has helped me integrate in the culture, tonight the owner, Anika, brought traditional games and juices and foods for us all to play and try. Oh, that's pretty cool. Expat says, what is the age gap for dating in Nicaragua? There's no age consideration in Nicaragua. That's an American thing. Like, people don't really think about it here. D. Gilbert says, there are constantly locals here that I am communicating with. TJ says, I've got more people coming at the end of the month. Diego says, there are different kind of marriages, different economic regiments, split assets, combined assets. TJ says, the family I've here now came down last year also. Can't even imagine. We had so much family that was like, oh, we'd really consider coming down or even moving. Brian says, Kim went down. Cool. Kat was there when I was. Oh, that's right. And you and Kat traveled back to Costa Rica together when you both left. Yeah, Kim came down for a week or 2 before she was in that tornado. Yeah, just out of the blue. Kim was like, I got to come down and hang out in Nicaragua. We're like, what? Come on down. It's really amazing owning a hotel, how few people will come visit. That really, and we say this constantly, that it's just amazing that we live in paradise. It's super cheap. It's so easy to get here from the US. We can pick up our family at the airport, and we own hotels, and we live in an estate. We have plenty of room for tons of family to come down all at once and crash in our house. And it would be really easy to stay next to our house at any number of little places nearby. But we also have 2 hotels that people could come down and stay in on the beach, not near the beach, on the beach. And no one wants to come down. Absolutely nobody. TJ says, to be honest, being host is exhausting after not doing much for a while. Diego says, the split assets marriage is the default one. Every partner keeps their own things by default. The only problem is which things are yours. That's where it gets messy. TJ says, my house has 6 bedrooms, so I just have everyone stay here. We've got 9. If we knew people were coming, we could definitely accommodate a lot. And we don't have one right now, but we often keep a separate apartment nearby for people to be able to come stay. So when we had one here, people would come from Managua. Nicaraguan friends would come and stay in it, but not friends from the U.S. Or back home. Just Just can't get people to come down. We have a lot of people on the show. Expat says, haha, actually, I would like to date, but my priority is to explore Nicaragua to see if I like it. Diego says, so for the default marriage, no prenup needed here. That's just the default marriage. We have to... More and more people keep getting on. I was not expecting this. And it's kind of late. And I have a lot of work to do. I was trying to do this to speed up the night. We're going to do the big show tomorrow. That is still the plan. Still seems to be on target. But I like having so many people on. I hate to abandon anybody. Some of you I know are exhausted. You did 3 hours with Luke's show before coming over here. I do want to point out, early on, no one has said this to me in a long time. Thank goodness, because I think it's stupid. But people used to argue with me that Nicaraguans do not need hot water because, I don't know, they would make up reasons for it. And I do have to say, my friend Ava actually hates hot showers and likes to take cold showers. So she says. And she's lived in Australia, where she had hot water. And I feel like I don't believe her. But we'll assume she's telling the truth. She's the only person who's ever told me that she likes taking cold showers. But I want to point out that even here in Leon, even here in the hot areas, it is so cold if you have to shower with groundwater, especially at night. And like this morning, because I have pneumonia, I wanted to take a nice shower and like breathe in the water and try to like help my sinuses. Even in daylight, in the mid-morning, with hot water. Okay, I have hot water. I have a hot water heater and not a suicide shower. I have a wall mount inline unit. It was so cold trying to take a shower. Way better than if I didn't have a hot water heater. Oh my gosh, I cannot imagine what the Nikas are going through, who all are pulling groundwater and have no hot water heaters at all, and are used to the heat. I'm used to some pretty cold temperatures. This is brutal. It was very uncomfortable taking a hot shower this morning. The air was cold, the water was cold, everything was cold. The hot water heater couldn't make it hot. It just took some of the painful edge off, which is all it normally does. Never does it like really do a great job, but this was really quite unpleasant this morning. So if I have it about as good as anyone gets, it is not okay that people don't have hot water here. It gets cold. I realize some people have it way better. Just somehow their water is naturally warmer, so they don't need to heat it. But, you know, and some people can wait and only take their showers at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when it's way warmer. Sure. But for a lot of us, those things just aren't options. Whether it's you need to take a shower to head to work, or you have pneumonia and you want to be able to try to make your sinuses feel better, or whatever. It is important to have access to a warm shower. D. Gilbert says, I hate that the more I'm here, the more I resent the USA, which I know is what you mentioned, but I feel bad turning my back on the country that's given me all I have to this point. So an interesting point about that. Any country you come from is going to give you everything you have to this point. Right? Like, that doesn't mean anything. I know it feels like it does, and your country tries to create Stockholm Syndrome to make you feel that you have to feel blessed that you were born and have whatever it is they gave you. But also all the things they didn't give you is also their fault, right? Had you grown up in Nicaragua or Argentina or France or Russia, you would have things and feel, but this country gave it to me. No, they didn't give it to you. It was yours. They took things from you, and what little bit you may have gotten advantage from them, they stole from other people, like Nicaraguans. So it is not the idea of turning your back on them doesn't actually make sense. It's a thing that governments say to try to force loyalty, and you should feel and don't necessarily look for blame on this, but if you have that feeling, stop and think, what would make that even occur to you? You've been mentally abused by the system somewhere, probably elementary school, middle school, all through, maybe in churches, maybe friends, who are trying to make you feel guilty for advantages that, yes, there are some advantages to coming from the U.S., certainly, but there are big disadvantages of coming from the U.S., but that you must feel a certain way for getting things you didn't ask for and they owed you, right? It's a weird feeling, right? And it's certainly something that has to be created externally, because naturally those feelings don't make sense. Naturally, that like, I owe the place I came from. It doesn't mean you have to dislike the place you came from. You can absolutely love the place you came from. You're not turning your back on them unless they turn their back on you. What you're feeling is a country that is resenting you and has abused you to the point where you start to feel the opposite, right? Your country has mistreated you and taken advantage of you and tried to make you feel like just not living there and not advertising it is somehow a thing you're required to do. You should feel bad if you don't do this thing. No, you should feel bad if you do that thing based not on it being a good place, but because you feel it's your duty, right? That is not your duty, right? As a human, as a good person, that doing what's right for you and or doing what is ethically right is portrayed in your mind as turning your back on where you came from. That alone should free you from any possible guilt, because how could doing what's good for you and or doing what's good for humanity ever be perceived as turning your back? That means in your mind, America is this evil place that you owe something to. The reality is that loads of Americans agree and do not feel that you are turning your back on them. You are supporting them, right? Millions, hundreds of millions of Americans have very different opinions than the one that you feel this pressure from. And they, like me, think it's wrong and feel that it is a form of being traitors to their culture to make people feel that way. But those that make people feel that way have managed to get into power. So your perception of America, potentially accurate, is telling that it makes you feel that way for doing the right thing, for doing a good thing. And the general feeling, I would say, is if you feel that way, stop and analyze it, and immediately you'll get I cannot possibly have to feel bad about this, because if they don't feel that way, right? If it's not turning your back on your country, then nothing to feel bad about. And if the act of doing something good is turning your back on them, then it means the only good answer is to turn your back on them. Regardless of what the reason is, the outcome is the same, that you're doing the right thing and you shouldn't feel badly about it. I hope that made sense. It's a difficult thing to explain. TJ says, after 1 year anniversary, I posted on Facebook about the only regret I have is not doing it sooner. I had a bunch of people hit me up wanting to visit. You would think, having a channel with 15,000 subscribers and 5,000 videos talking about how much I love the decision to live here would get somebody to want to come, of family at least. Diego says, Xpizzazz, I hope you're an extrovert. If you want to date, no one uses dating apps here. I have zero opportunities to meet girls as I don't go out to party and don't drink. Expat says, I never use dating apps. Janet says, well, I left my computer running the show during Luke's show when I went to the store. Then he ended up that show 28 seconds before I got back. It's okay if you want to leave for now. There is tomorrow. Expat says, don't worry, there's someone for everyone. Diego says, you're the man, haha, I have no way to meet girls. Yeah, it's not that there isn't a girl for him. He just can't meet her. Which might be even more depressing. DJ says, some people have that tank on the roof that heats up the water. So TJ, I have a tank. The problem is that if you do it during the day at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, it has gotten warm. But if you use it in the morning, it's been sitting out all night at 65 degrees. It is cold. So until the sun has had a lot of time to heat it up, that thing's in cold air and quite cold. Diego says, I don't worry. I'll eventually meet someone. When I turn 30, I'll start to worry. Expossess says, it only takes one woman and single life is all over. Diego says, in Doral, we have natural hot water from the volcano. Really? Which volcano? Oh, must be nice. Brian says, the cold showers were super annoying there. Yeah, in Leon, they are cold. Diego says, in Villa Libertad, only took cold showers. It was refreshing. Although Managua cold is not the same as Leon cold from my experience. Every time I'm in Managua, I've taken Villa Libertad. I've showered in Villa Libertad, and it was cold, but nothing like Leon. Expossess says, one day you're single, you meet someone, and boom, before you know it, you're married. It happens fast. Joseph Hernandez says, if I relocate and live in Nicaragua, could I make money from import-exports? I'm coming from the U.S. I mean, potentially, yeah. As always, you've got to really know what you're doing and be exceptionally good at it. Keep in mind that you have Nicaraguan-based import-exporters that already have loads and loads of experience. So, I mean, the easy answer is no. But is it possible? Yes. Is it realistic? No. Because the importers and exporters from Nicaragua already have the relationships with aduana. They already have the relationships with the shippers. They already have all the shipping going in and out that presumably people need. Trying to get in and find things to ship in and out that are already shipping in and out, and doing so with unlimited numbers of companies that have local connections and local staff and local knowledge and decades or centuries of experience, that's a really tough game. Unless you have something outrageously unique or special knowledge to bring to the situation, it would be hard to imagine how you'd be able to find a niche in that space where you'd be able to outcompete the locals without them just crushing you and making it a money-losing situation. And I would guess that it would take at least 10 years to make the connections necessary. So if you start now, right, and then start a business in 10 years after you've just made those connections, you'd have some chance, but it'll be really hard. Right, unless you just have some unique hook that no Nicaraguan can compete with, then maybe. But especially being American, you are at an exceptional disadvantage because so many Nicaraguans have family in the U.S. You've got import-exporters with both sides being family already that know what they're doing. So enjoy single life while it lasts. Expat says, Brian says, I don't like the current USA, but the uprooting is just more scary than the USA, at least for me right now. The thing, Brian, about the uprooting is that don't think of it as uprooting. Think of it as visiting. And just visit until it becomes uncomfortable or not the place you want to be. Like, you've been here on vacation. That's not scary. Right? Because you can go back. Well, you have to go back in that case. You have your flight or whatever. But imagine if you do it, but just don't have that flight back, but you've got the money for a flight back, right? And you can go back. You're not giving up your passport. You're not giving up anything. You can always just go back. So from that perspective, there shouldn't be, like, the idea, and I say this a lot, like, I've moved to other countries, and I remember to some degree the first time I moved to another country, which was Spain. There was a certain amount of, okay, we're selling our vehicles, we're putting everything into storage. we're saying goodbye to our old life. We are truly uprooting my wife and kids and moving to Europe. And that was the cat. And that was a bit scary. And then we got there, and it wasn't scary at all. And at every moment, and I'm good about this kind of thing, at every moment I knew the instant things weren't good, we could just move on somewhere else, which includes moving right back. If Europe wasn't good, okay, failed experiment. Just go right back to Texas. We knew where we liked to be. Now, at the time, we kept our house in Texas. We didn't get rid of that for a while. It took a long time before we got rid of that. I wish we would have gotten rid of it a lot sooner, but it gave us a lot of comfort. False comfort, I think. It would have been far, we definitely knew enough that had we needed to go back, we should have just rented, right? But you can just return. And so when you think of it as simply an open-ended vacation, where, yeah, you're going to expect to find a way to earn a living while being on vacation so that you can make vacation go as long as you want. And then if it goes for the rest of your life, fine. But at no moment were you not one day away from returning to the U.S. And that should, in theory, remove all of the scary. At no point are you making, you don't have to tell people, I'm moving to Nicaragua. You just tell people, I'm going to Nicaragua for now. For now, could be weeks, months, could be years, could be permanent. I'm not making that decision now. You shouldn't make that decision now. Go visit some places. Put in some time, right? And at some point, you'll just be like, oh, the idea of actually not going back and making the decision not to go back isn't scary at all now. Then make that decision. For me, that was 2019, right? It took me 4 years to the point where I said, we have to cut ties and be done. I probably would have made that choice on day one if it was just me, but with the wife and kids, we waited longer, and with the business, we waited longer, but only 4 years. 4 years of trying different things out, came back to Nicaragua and said, just need to make the move and make this home. And then nothing's permanent. Every move is so easy. D. Gilbert says, I was speaking like economic opportunities I had and the ability to go almost any country without it being a super long process. Wait, what was that? What were we talking about? Yeah, I mean, but that's still, right? So first of all, you're losing those opportunities quickly, right? Already Nicaragua has easier access to Europe than the U.S. does. It has better access to a lot of LATAM than the U.S. does. So is the U.S. still better globally? Yeah. But now, does it give you better economic opportunities? That's actually arguable. It feels like it does. But again, if it does through nefarious means. So it's not something to feel that you owe them anything for. But the ability to go almost any country without it being a super long process, that's completely through threats and military. It's a nice thing in theory, but again, not something to feel you owe anyone about. They owe you for having forced you to spend money on making that possible through means you'd find detestable, right? That's their trying to make you feel better about them doing bad things. Diego says, making money here, not really recommended. There's really not that much money to make, right? And he's right. Oh, I read what he meant. There's very little money to be made here. And doing it in a space where you're up against really, really talented, experienced, established, connected locals is madness, right? Unless it's just a hobby you want to do. But if you're planning on paying your bills, you'd be better stuffing your money in a mattress, I guarantee. Please consider desiderata. Your resentment is not unjustified, but neither is your questioning it. You just defined being a good person. Well done. Diego says, I hope someone will eventually come about dating. Leon Ravishanina 5482. I can't read these things. Scott, do you have a Chinatown close to your town? No. If so, go where and ask if someone could put a vacuum cans on your back. It'll help you very fast to heal your pneumonia. It's for the best treatment. There is no Chinatown in this country or any bordering country. I'm not sure what country has a Chinatown in this region. There are so few Chinese, and I know Nicaraguans are going to be like, "What? We're flooded with Chinese." Living here, I don't know. Yeah, Chris, it's a I don't think that's their real name, but it's a suction technique. It would be related to acupressure or acupuncture or something of that nature, right? It's that family of Eastern healing things, but and I probably am wrong about this. I'm no expert in the slightest for anyone who's like, Scott knows lots of things. Maybe that's true. This is not one of them. But I think this is where they're more like suction cups, not like plastic suction cups. They're like glass cups, and they like use fire to suck the oxygen out, and it creates not a vacuum, but it creates a partial vacuum, and it's used much like acupuncture is, but obviously a totally different thing. But no, there's no, especially here in Leon, there is no Chinese contingency. Like, that is not a thing. I'm looking through the region to see if there's, okay, so Mexico has a Chinatown. Panama supposedly has one. Peru, obviously. Venezuela has one. That's the only ones that are close. Next closest would be Dominican Republic. Oh, Colombia. Cuba. Yeah. No Central American countries have a Chinatown. And I've been in all the Central American countries. Belize has a huge Chinese population, but no Chinatown. But they do have a giant, especially Taiwanese population. That would be the closest I would run into anything like that. The amount of like Chinese stores here, I know that people are like, oh, the China stores, they are brand new and they are all the same things. They're just import-export offloaders. They're not like Chinese communities. They're not like Chinese restaurants. They're not like Chinese shops. They're not Chinese groceries. We don't have any of that stuff. Not really. D. Gilbert says, the cold water in Grenada is actually quite mild. Yeah, that's Leon. It is not mild. D. Gilbert says, does Amazon work here? Absolutely. We all live and die by it. Just remember, Amazon, the whole thing is you have to use a shipper, but that's it. Everything works here. Absolutely everything. Just ship to your shipping address in the U.S. from anything. They don't need to know you're in Nicaragua. It has nothing to do with anything. To deliver. Diego says, Apoyeke volcano. Yeah. Diego says, no, not recommended. Aduana will kill you. Send it to a local courier in Miami or California. Well, okay, yes, but that's how Amazon works here, right? Amazon, so it's all about the question. This is what we say. Can you get Amazon here? Yes, just as cheap as in the U.S., but it takes longer. Does Amazon itself work here? No, it's not Amazon who does it, but Amazon stuff comes here, right? So it's all, nobody cares that it's Amazon. We care that Amazon deliveries show up at our door. Right, as Diego says, there's nothing here. You just buy from the U.S. and it just magically appears at your door, basically. So it's, we really don't give up U.S. shopping. That's the nice thing. Why does it feel like most are going broke back home? Because they are. The economy is destroyed. Did you see, like, Bitcoin lost like $500 billion today, and gold is collapsing, like all these things, exactly what we knew was going to happen. Everybody knew was going to happen. It's happening, right? There's no underlying economy. The U.S. isn't producing anything. It's falling apart. It has an economy built on facade, and at some point, that's very tough to maintain. Diego says to Brian, you're always a 2-hour flight from the States. Diego says they are making a Chinatown in Managua. They are rezoning the Parque de Ferias. Oh, I know where that is. They're really going to make a Chinatown, like housing? I mean, that would actually be pretty cool. Are there enough Chinese in the country to live in it? You don't see any. Chris says, I get it, Kopang. I just disagree is all. No biggie. I have a bio bias. I'm not sure who you're responding to, but I definitely get Kopang. That's Belter talk. You Belter Loda. Janet says, Panama would have a Chinatown from building the canal, and my son-in-law had a Chinese great something grandfather from those times. They probably also have a French town. I've lived in Panama. I did not live in Panama City, just to be clear. So I've never run into the Chinatown in Panama. I don't really know it. Justice says gold is almost 5,000 an ounce. That's definitely inflated. Chris says regarding the cans. Yeah, that's. I only know it from association. I've never actually. But Joseph, gold at only at 5,000 an ounce, while inflated, is actually still not very good, right? It's a huge bubble, so it is the best that gold has ever been, but there's very little worse than buying anything at its all-time peak, especially something that doesn't grow over time. Oh, Chris says I'm a retired RT. I don't actually know what an RT is, Chris. Medical professional of some sort, I'm assuming. I'll probably... Radiation tech? Diego says, oh, Bitcoin, the tech pro gambling. Yeah, and now they discovered what they've been funding, and everyone's disgusted by it. So that's something. Yeah, but gold has performed outrageously poorly over its lifetime. Respiratory. Okay. Well, where were you when I need like information on what to do? No, I'm fine. But over its lifetime, gold has performed really poorly, but it's not supposed to really do anything, right? It's just supposed to hold steady because it's gold, right? It doesn't go up in value, it doesn't. So if people are paying a whole lot for it, yes, it is an indicator of fear, and really dramatic fear, right? If you're going to buy something at 5,000 that has a traditional value of roughly, 1,000, maybe a little bit more, that means you're willing to expect to set 80% of your money on fire because you're so worried about losing all of it, right? You're willing to go down to 20% of your holdings potentially overnight, that's a real fear, right? Once you're doing that kind of hedging, things are bad, right? In your mind. I'm not saying that things are definitely that bad, but they're bad, and so. You want to think really carefully about what it means, because when you look historically at when markets did go to gold, right? For example, Nazi Germany. Go if you're ever just want to see the gold market collapse in media. Go check out Casablanca, fantastic film. Watch when they're trying to pawn gold. People are in panic trying to unload their gold, and they're being given absolutely, 5% on the value, and they have to take it because it's an emergency. On one hand, you can say that's horrible. They lost all of their money. And on the other hand, you say, well, but at least they had enough to be able to escape Nazi Germany. You could look at it either way. But in today's economy of mobile money, being able to get money from a place to another, you don't have to carry it in your pockets the way that you used to. And so, and gold traditionally was used for women to carry money. When women weren't allowed to do banking, they weren't allowed to open bank accounts. Sometimes they couldn't carry large amounts of cash. And so they, they would need gold for that. But those aren't logical things anymore. And so gold carries a lot of risk, a lot of risk. If you're, if you're trading on the spot prices and you're carefully monitoring the day-to-day fluctuations, cool, right? It's gambling like any other. But if you're thinking that it's a wealth store, just like Bitcoin, those things are highly inflated, no underlying support for their value. So when people stop being in panic, they can drop precipitously and are expected to, are essentially guaranteed to. So Brian says, PM or email Scott, pneumonia is not a small thing. Chris says he's been monitoring my cough. I'm at the trailing end of it. There's still a little bit there, but it's I've been talking for 2.25 hours, right, with pneumonia. So, my wife wants to know if she should bring me chocolate banana cake so I can eat it on the show and sing her praises while I'm eating it because it's so good. Diego says, was anyone really surprised by what Bitcoin was funding about those files? No, not really. People just got exposed and needed to say something. Diego says, I've had pneumonia 4 times. I was a very sick child. It was okay, a stronger flu. I've had it quite a few times. I did get scarlet fever. That was bad. That was the time that my doctor's like, you're a problem. What's my opinion on Bitcoin? If you already have talked about it, sorry, I get a little late. My opinion on Bitcoin right at this moment or in general, so I'm really upset about the news of how Bitcoin is being used or how it was funded. But of course, but let's take that out of it, right? And just talk about Bitcoin as a wait, what is a DNPC? You just mean a doctor of nursing practice certified? Or do you mean something respiratory? She needs to be on the stream and chat with us. She does. She's busy tonight. Getting her on would be hard. But I do need to get her on. She hasn't been on in a long time. Dry, non-productive cough. That is true. It is a dry, non-productive cough at this point. But there's also very little to bring up. So I'm not too worried about it. It was not dry and non-productive until today, when I suddenly feel like it's basically, I'm mostly just irritating it, I think. When I chill out, I stop coughing. But my opinion on Bitcoin. When you look at Bitcoin from a technical perspective, I think that it's a perfectly fine thing. I think that as a coin, as a currency, it has good uses. I think the technology is interesting and important. I think that as a and Bitcoin itself is early adopter, right? There's better technologies come afterwards. Obviously, why would something come later if it wasn't better, or at least significantly different and interesting? So I think Bitcoin is an important thing, but it's being misused and mispromoted. I have, in my entire life, never met a person who both understood and accepted it for what it was and used it. Every person I've ever met who I've ever spoken to, have ever crossed paths with in any sense, who uses it, also saw it as a get-rich-quick scheme and saw it as a mistaken investment vehicle, which it is not. And some people are just plain out scamming with it, people who claim it's like a value store or something like that, a wealth store. Those are things that its name itself tells you it isn't, right? It's Bitcoin. Coin, currency. Is currency a wealth store? Never, by definition. You can't be a currency in a wealth store. It has to be one or the other. What is Bitcoin? Since the very first concept of it ever existed, it was to be a currency. It's called a cryptocurrency. It's called Bitcoin. Everything about it in its early days was how it was useful as a currency. Now, it turns out that there's some problems with that, with some technical overhead. That's negative. But the concept was good, right? This theoretically low overhead, very flexible, non-secret, it turns out, currency was a nice alternative. But if we treated it like that, I think it would be a useful tool in certain circumstances, many circumstances, for sure. But we don't. I don't know anyone who treats it that way. Everyone treats it as a something else. And when you try to say, but it has one purpose to be a currency, why don't we use it that way? As soon as you point that out, people who are into it suddenly are like, no, you got it all wrong. It's the polar opposite of what it was built to be and the polar opposite of what it makes sense as. And suddenly you're like, okay, no, this is just bad, right? So I see the discussions around it often very bad. I see how people are using it in real life, almost always really super bad. Some people get lucky with it, right? But only at the expense of other people. It's not like stocks where everybody can win. It's for one person to win, someone else has to lose. And with Bitcoin, there's the possibility of there being more losers than winners because of the really high loss rate. So there's so much risk to it and so little value that unfortunately the marketing of it has made its underlying value erode. But conceptually, I think it's cool. I just want you all to know that Brian Watson just contacted my wife and is like, he needs cake on the show. She's like, Brian says you need cake. Am I really supposed to bring you one? Diego says, fiat is just pieces of paper that states require we give back to them to not be jailed. I mean, you could say the same thing. A state can just make you give them your Bitcoin. So it doesn't... Fiat currency does not carry the negatives that people imagine because they always have to come up with something, right? It's just normal money. It doesn't have, like, have you ever heard of a state taking it back? No. And if they did, they probably like real things. States take gold back all the time. That's a normal thing. Seizing gold, very common. Normally they compensate you, not always. Diego says everything can be I'll read this. Everything can be a trading token. It just needs to be rare enough or represent something we trust for all of us to agree. No, something being rare does not work as a trading token. That's actually a misconception. That's where gold is a real failure because gold doesn't, if it's super rare, we don't have enough of it to trade with. And if it's not super rare, then its intrinsic value doesn't work to represent the thing we're trying to move. But importantly, moving something and things that are super rare risk becoming extra rare or stop being rare really quickly, and that's also very dangerous. But moving something incredibly rare around comes with massive problems, like how do you acquire it in the first place, and how do you have enough of it? You need enough of it to represent the total economy, because you're not just trading gold for, let's say, platinum. Oh, is there enough gold to represent the platinum we have? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But that's a risk. But we need it to represent everything. All the silver, all the water, all the wheat, all the houses, all the cars, right? Is there that much gold? Not even close, not even remotely. And so in order to make it represent those things, we have to then, and this is where it gets funny, turn gold into a fiat currency where we're using gold in place of printed currency and using fiat issuances to add value to it. This gets super weird. So gold stops being a precious metal and starts being just a currency, one that you can recreate. So that's why they start minting it into shapes so that they can try to make it a fiat. Like it really doesn't work because it can't represent the thing that it's there to do. So let's just say you wanted to buy all the gold in the world. Well, how would you? Right? If you want to buy gold, how can you conceptually buy gold? The act of buying gold makes gold more expensive. So if all the gold was to be bought, it would be unlimitedly expensive. So it couldn't be bought. What? Something has to break, right? That's why when people promote gold standards, you have to be like, well, hold on, that's insane. Joseph says, sorry if I keep asking, but I respect your opinion, but you believe that silver and gold price right now will collapse or continue to rise in the current economy? Oh, they may rise for a little bit, right? The amount of panic and craziness that are going to happen, they could go up. I'm not saying that they're absolutely at their limit. I'm saying that they are in a bubble and it has to burst. Gold has an intrinsic value of somewhere between $500 and $1,000. No one knows the exact value, but you can look at charts very easily and say, gold has not, until the last few months, regained its initial issuance value at the end of Bretton Woods in 1978, 1979, right? So for the last just shy of 50 years, gold has been at a relatively steady state, less than its issuance value. Right now, we're seeing a global upheaval that is creating a panic on the market that is being used to fuel investor risk by pushing people into bubbles. We see the NVIDIA, Microsoft, OpenAI deals being put together to create bubbles. We see the entire AI thing being used to prop up the US economy and keep people from realizing that it has collapsed. Gold and silver are at insane numbers that are unprecedented in history. Well, those are like houses, things that can't just go up in value. They have a base value that doesn't change. And so if they're above that value, they will come back down to it. Maybe tomorrow, maybe in 20 years, we don't know, but we know they're coming back down, just like an inflated house market. My wife is here and she has brought cake. People wanted you to be on the show.
Yeah, Watson's been trying to convince me.
Yeah.
I told
You haven't
him I
been on the show in a long
didn't
time.
wanna be famous.
But you've been on the show before. Okay, look, this is the, how do you describe it? Just a chocolate banana bread?
It's chocolate banana bread.
Chocolate banana bread. She says it's not a cake. All right,
Well,
I'm eating on the show.
I made it cake shaped.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I told you.
Mm-hmm.
It's made with oats. It's not made with regular flour.
Ah. So it's healthy dessert.
Ish. And agave instead of like refined sugar. Yeah. And a lot of chocolate chips.
There's a lot of chocolate
Yeah,
chips.
it's really good though, isn't it? It's like fudgy and
Oh,
amazing. Oh, not you.
Look who wants some. We're gonna bring him up. There he is. He's getting so big. So big. Look at that face. Everyone loves him on the show. He's so popular. Do you hear that?
Yes.
The lip smack?
Yeah.
That was crazy. Oh, and now the big dog's here.
Yes, that's
Okay, I'm
what
putting you down. Oh, I like that. You're a good dog. Would you mind refilling my hot water? Thank you.
Just hot water.
Oh, well, yeah, just add hot water to it. So yeah, I mean, like, if you want to invest in gold or silver, invest, I use loosely, if you want to trade in gold or silver, because you have done your research and you feel that it will keep going up for the time being, and you understand that you're riding a bubble and that it could pop, and it's like musical chairs, right? You don't want to be the one caught without a chair, and with gold and silver, 80 to 90% of people who have it will be caught without a chair. So or you have to get out like super early and get really small gains. Can you do that? Absolutely, you can do that. But just be aware that's the game you're playing, right? You're holding something that you know is going to burst sooner or later. And how much risk do you want to carry? But even holding gold versus, even if you had it just in this last little bit, it's barely barely keeping up with other market indicators. So while we see it going up in value, it's not reinvesting itself. It's not doing things we expect from other securities. So its value is still not as good as it looks, right? Because it's a trading item, not an investment item. Expat says binary digit coin. Janet says, well, I've got to go. I have a late class. Well, have fun. Now I've got the tickle in my throat, so I got to be careful. Diego says, Bitcoin is not really used. Yeah, now I'm going downhill. It's not really used as a medium of exchange. It's just an unregulated security. So, sort of. It's not a security, right? It just isn't. So, it's an unregulated currency, right? And people are accidentally treating a currency as a security. You can, I mean, it is, right? So security technically is any tradable financial asset. So is it a financial asset? Can you trade it? Yes. But it's important that we don't often refer to cash as a currency. And so I'm going to read this because this is I understand. Wikipedia's definition of the United States definition of a currency. In the United States, a currency is a tradable financial asset of any kind. Securities can broadly be categorized into debt securities, which include banknotes, bonds, and debentures, equity securities, such as common stocks, and derivatives, such as forwards, futures, options, and swaps. Banknotes are a currency, right? So that's where it falls into. It is a currency, but most people don't use the term currency in reference to a straight currency, security in reference to a straight currency. Chris says heated humidity might help. I find that almost always helps me, just in general. But considering where you live, just deep breath, honey, lemon, and tea for the throat. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I don't tend to do the honey, but I do. Let me get the dog here. I do warm tea all day long. And when I can, warm shower. And that stuff normally does the trick. I do have the nebulizer sitting beside me. I can inject some warm mist if I need to. I'm really enjoying this cake. This is fantastic. All right, he says vacuum cans are Asian and Russian treatment, very old technique with fire. That's what I said. I thought it was. You can find it on YouTube to see. It's not the acupuncture, provides very fast healing. Oh, I know it's not acupuncture. I'm just saying that like Eastern healing centers that tend to do one, tend to do the other. That's all I meant. That it's in that like family of treatments. Brian says, just trying to get her to join the cool crowd. I'll get her on sometime soon. Diego says, pump and dump, baby. I mean, that's anytime you're trading a non-stock commodity, that's pretty much what you're doing, or hoping you're riding on the tails of. Expat says $500 is what they bought it at and are now pushing it so hard on TV. Oh, Bitcoin is what it means, yeah. Chris says, from my naive understanding, diamonds are not rare. So marketing, am I off base there? I know I'm out of my element. So yes, diamonds are not rare. They are artificially made rare. Hold on. Come on. And there is a single diamond cartel that controls all the diamond trade in the world for natural diamonds. So they keep the available supply under control and control the prices that they can trade at. The thing that's breaking that, and this has been needed for so long, is that finally people are starting to associate the cartel and the blood diamonds and this elaborate crime that they have used and have tricked women into. And it's really, natural diamonds should be seen as an attack on women, right? Preying on women and manipulating women to demand flawed diamonds when, and like the concept of diamonds, okay, right, that's fine. But artificial diamonds are of higher quality and can be made very cheaply and very safely, right? So now there are companies pumping out high quality artificial diamonds that are far better than the natural ones. And it's really a silly thing to be like, oh, no, you have to pay a lot because it's a flawed diamond that we killed people to get. What? Like, so more and more people are appalled by people demanding natural diamonds, and that is starting to break up the market a little bit. But yeah, even natural ones are not in limited supply. Expat says, hello, Mrs. Miller, but she already disappeared. Eliano Ravishan says, take 1 liter water, boil it, put 1 tablespoon of baking soda, and breathe the steam. I've never done it with baking soda, but I'll boil water quite often and breathe it. Brian says, do you think data centers will make an appearance in Central America since the U.S. is going to run out of power? I know that El Salvador has been talking about it. We have the volcanic power ready here. They can do it, but they're behind. There hasn't been a big push for it here, even with data centers being looked at in the region previously. So I don't know. It could happen. But it doesn't seem too likely. We'll see. Diego says, I was trying to say that people treat it as a security. I gotcha. Oh, Diego says, I've always found it weird that in the U.S. the women changes the last name. Has to be so annoying to do it. It is super annoying. And believe it or not, like no American company and even the U.S. government is not even slightly prepared for this to happen. They act like every single marriage in the history of the country was a complete surprise and they never heard of such a thing. And yet, you will basically never meet an American woman who hasn't done that. That's not true anymore. When I was a kid, that was completely true. Like, they always change their name. And it's like a big thing. They portray girls like wanting to get married as dreaming about taking a boy's last name. Like girls in like middle school will be like, oh, have a crush on a boy, and they'll write their name with his last name, right? It's like this big iconic moment. And it's really weird and very complex. The one reason that it is kind of neat is you end up with families with a single name. So that's something that you don't get in a lot of other cultures. I guess that's neat. But it is even as Americans who grew up with it, it is a super weird and incredibly complicated thing. And I hate that, you know, and part of it comes from a culture of women were not supposed to have friends. Like, they could have friends, but once they got married, then they just had their husband's friends. So, like, women in North America very much seen as appendages of their husbands. And so think Saudi Arabia, right? That's really, the U.S. and Saudi Arabia are culturally very, very close. And to the point where, you know, a lot of the U.S. is seen as Islamic by Saudi Arabia, UAE, those areas, and they realize that what is called the Christian Church in the United States is recognized as an arm of Islam because they follow Islamic tenets, not Christian tenets. So there's a ton of these kinds of things that cross over. So if you think about how women are seen as an appendage and not seen as full people on their own in North America, that this changing of the name is seen as very iconic and very important because it's seen as property transfer, right? It's an ownership thing, traditionally. Diego says, that's such an interesting and bloody topic. Diamonds are forever. Chris says, I'm sensing a bit of tongue-in-cheek there, Sir Diego. Well done. Diego says, I mean, I just have both last names and the family unit call both names, not just a single one. Chris says, archaic male dominance. Exactly. Hey. Oh. But yeah, I was going to say, it's so awful because here, let's say you know a girl from middle school and you meet her in college or later in life. She'll have the same name. But coming from where I'm from, I don't know a single... Hey, stop. The dog's biting me. I don't know a single girl who has the same name. Hey. Stop. And so... And not only do they not have the same name, most have changed their names. Now, 100 years ago, people didn't tend to get remarried very often. But now I know so many girls, and I'm trying to remember like 4 different names. Like the average is multiple names that they've had since I've known them. And they will change their name when they get married, change their name again when they get divorced sometimes, change their name when they get married again. Sometimes not. You never know. Every combination happens. They end up with completely random last names that they end up sticking with. I'm sorry, but no chocolate for doggies. My dogs are very insistent that the chocolate amount is safe for them, but we're not giving them chocolate. That was delicious. Oh my gosh. That was mostly chocolate with a little bit of banana to moisturize it. All right, guys. We're going to call it a night there. We're down to 19 people. It's been a very good night. I don't want to push my voice too hard because I do have the real live stream tomorrow. And we're a little bit quiet, so it's perfect. And there we go. We're down to 18 people are starting to drop off. Thanks so much for joining me. Remember to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't. Brian says, I have a friend divorced for ages, but still didn't change her name for all the trouble. Oh, yeah, tons. And some people are like, no, I don't change my name with divorce. I would like, okay. I don't know. It feels weird to me. I feel like either you change it all the time or never. Anything in between seems strange. I kind of get the always change it. Like, if you're just going to always change it, like, that's cool. And I do like that some people are like, I hate my name, so I get to get a new one. Okay. And some guys do change their name too. It's not unheard of. You're allowed to, but then it's super confusing. And no company can handle it. And it also really harms women professionally because men build... So, for example, I've been Scott Allen Miller professionally since I was 13. You can look up anything I've ever done. Any book I've written, paper I've written, article I've posted, thing that I've created from all time under my name, always under the same name. But I don't know off the top of my head any women that I've worked with professionally who can do the same thing. All of them built a career searchable under one name, and then when older, change their names, and their career starts recording under a different name in most circumstances. So that is a really impactful thing that people don't realize, right? Oh, I want to see what Scott Allen Miller's been doing. Oh my gosh, here's a career that I can look up. Well, this person who's competing with him and is maybe a little bit brighter, a little bit better at it, we look her up and she only seems to have records for 5 years. We understand that she probably has records before that we haven't found, but we haven't found them, so we don't know, right? And they've made it illegal for women to have to disclose their marital status. So an employer or a researcher can't say, hey, did you get married? Did you change your name? Nope, you can't ask that because you're not supposed to know. So it silently cuts off an important aspect of women's professional lives. Women already have the problem of often they want to have kids, and that takes them out of the workforce for months or years while they do that. That's a very difficult thing. A lot of women are like, wow, I was gone for 3 years, but I still put in a 40-year career. But a man, at least in my field, who takes 3 years off in the middle, it's considered a career reset. You're gone for too long, you start over. So you have this weird situation where the impacts of some very quiet things. Stop it. No bite. Can be very, very dramatic. Right. And people don't think about, and especially, if you go back to the 1800s, 1700s, when these customs came about, this impact didn't exist. We have more people on now. I should have cut while I had fewer. There were a lot of impacts, but it didn't have this professional thing because you would always provide, here's my references, and that's all. They could never look up anything about you at all. But now in the era of searching on people and having these connected legacies, men have a huge advantage in North America or women in Latin America because their names are consistent and their career resumes are tied to them. We never considered that people might need to search on things later. And it's not just professional. It's also in social circles. Men can be searched on for their entire lives. But I can't find any of the girls I went to high school with because they all changed their names. I don't have the first clue where they live. That's the other thing, right? Now in the modern world, we move away all the time, especially in North America. So with that, no longer living in your hometown and no longer using your last name, you are a wholly different person that nobody you grew up with can identify with. My best friend from high school, luckily I know where she is. She lives down the street from me here in Nicaragua. But she lives in Nicaragua. If I tried to search on anything from our home state or city or anything of the sort, I would never find her. If I tried to search on anything by her name from high school, I would not be able to find her. If I tried to search on her first married name that I knew her as, I wouldn't be able to find her. I got some tea, Chris, and that was a productive cough. I actually moved things around, so that's not bad. So the impact in just her, and she's a professional who uses her name for everything professional, right? She works in finance and has personal customers, so they need to be able to look her up. So there's real impacts in that way. It would be annoying not to have the same name as their kids in that culture. That is true, and it can impact you. If you don't have the same name as your kids, police will sometimes take your kids away. Not permanently under normal circumstances these days, yeah, but under normal circumstances, they wouldn't take your kids away. But you could end up not being able to speak to your kids or not being able to access them in a hospital because people use matching last names as a identifier for things with kids in a lot of circumstances. Because it's not like we carry paperwork to say who they are. We do need some more thumbs up before we cut for the night. They might question often if she's the mother. Yeah, exactly. Brian says, Diego, yeah, she has the primary custody, so there's that to be the same. Expossess says, less than half of households back home are married now. Diego says, and over there you don't even have a national ID card. That has to be a mess. I never understood why the fuss the U.S. made about voters until I learned you have no national ID. Yeah. I literally don't know of another country without a national ID. It is so bizarre not having a national ID. Technically, we kind of do now. The Real ID system. I mean, passports are a national ID. So they did it with Real ID. That's the attempt to move to it. Chris says, yeehaw, yeah, get that stuff up and out. Nighty-night, Kopeng. Ojalá que nos vemos de pronto. Thanks so much. Yeah, 20 watching, 22 thumbs up. We're at 21 watching right now. Sorry to the people who just signed on. We're coming up on 3 hours. I have pneumonia. We are going down for the night, but we will do the long live tomorrow. I really appreciate everybody getting on and hanging out and all the questions and stuff. We've had a very active chat. This has been fantastic. And at the moment, I'm feeling quite good. That last productive cough, now that I have the tea and apparently the chocolate banana cake, I'm in pretty good shape. I have a little bit of it feels like I have a cold, like a little bit going on in my sinuses. Real minor, but that I haven't really had all day, so that's a good sign. I think everything's kind of in that final stages of going away, so I'm feeling pretty good about all that, and I just generally feel pretty good. I have a bunch of work I have to do. I have an emergency project that needs me, so thank you so much. Like and subscribe. Buy me a coffee if you would like. buymeacoffee.com/Scott Allen Miller. Actually, several people bought me a coffee while the show was going on. So I didn't look at them. If it's someone who's on the show, thank you so much. And Diego says, passports are not IDs. I meant more like a free ID card if you can't get into a government office. Well, passports are IDs, actually. So in the U.S., they are usable in every situation where you would have an ID. They're just inconvenient. So they are issuing these things called real IDs now that are kind of basically national ID. But if you just issue a passport to everybody, it works as a national ID. Just it's big and bulky and a pain. I spoke too soon. I had a little bit of cough left. All right, everybody. Have a good night. I will see all of you